Whatever it's easy.
Good evening, everyone. Can I call the meeting to order, please? I just want to say welcome to everyone for August the 19th, 2024 Common Council meeting. Great to see the chambers full. We're going to start off this evening with a land acknowledgement, and that's over to Councillor Sullivan for that, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The land on which the city of St. John, or Menaquest, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. The Wolastoqiyik, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and the Pescatomakati, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let's take a moment to pause and reflect.
Okay, I'll ask everyone to please stand for the national anthem. Okay, City Clerk, next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item on the agenda is item 2.1, approval of minutes of July the 22nd.
Deputy and Councillor Stewart on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And next, we have the approval of the agenda. And just before we list the items that have been added, also wanted to confirm that all council members received the additional items that were submitted to council, the 2 letters from the public.
Yes.
And, okay. And now we have a few items that are coming from Committee of the Whole session. The first one would be 17.1, and that's the Multipurpose Recreation Facility MOU. Next would be 17.2, St. John Industrial Parks. 17.3, 26 to 28 Retail Drive. And 17.4, the update to management and professional personnel terms and conditions.
Okay, and now are we moving 17.1?
And the other
We need
item
to
is,
do that.
there's a request to move, that's correct, request to move item 17.1 to be dealt with as soon as the consent agenda has been approved.
Okay. So I'll take a motion. Thank you, Councillor Harris. And the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And next is disclosures of conflict of interest, if we have any.
Councillor Radwan.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a conflict on 17.3 Retail Drive.
Okay, Councillor, I'll go to Councillor Stewart. Okay. Councillor Harris, or Councillor, sorry, Hickey.
11-3, Your Worship.
Which one?
11-3.
11-3. Yep. Okay. Councillor Killen.
11-3 as well.
All right. Good. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda.
Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move 5.1 to 5.10, Your Worship.
Take a seconder on that. Councillor Sullivan. On the question, Councillor Radwan.
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to mention 5.2, there's a part in the report that said that they would be looking at maybe changing some of the bylaws to allow less red tape for refunds for some of the different projects, like we've got this one coming. I just wanted to let staff know that I would be in support of that, as long as either the director or commissioner, I'm not sure who would really understand how the budget works and how many people would be involved, but just to be able to know how much to refund. That's just my feedback. And I just had a question as well on 5.6. Just wondering, like, when we're getting a quote from contractors, I mean, I know obviously there was a lot of things that came up for this, but, and I don't know who to direct this to, maybe Commissioner Fogan. Is there anything that we have in our contract to hold them a little more to the quote?
I'm sending that one over to Commissioner Fogan, who's behind you there. Over to you, Commissioner.
Through your worship to the councillor. So on this particular project, we actually only had one respondent to this tender that was issued. And this was a time-sensitive one that we wanted to get out and issued in construction on right away. So there certainly was some changes along the way. So some of the delays in the construction are certainly not the fault of the contractor. There are certainly some unknowns underground that were unknown, I guess, when the tender was awarded.
Yeah, no, I certainly understand that. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't see any questions, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is the item we moved forward. So this is item 17.1 now, and it's a presentation with respect to multipurpose recreation facility.
Commissioner Hugenholtz, over to you for this.
I got it. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. There we go. I'm very pleased this evening to provide an update on the catalytic multipurpose recreational facility. In 2022, St. John City Council endorsed as one of their catalytic infrastructure projects a new multipurpose recreational facility to replace aging arenas, help attract and retain residents, and draw visitors by creating a modern complex for sports, recreation, and the arts. This evening, I'm pleased to announce that the city has entered into a memorandum of understanding with the St. John Fieldhouse Inc. and the YMCA to develop this facility on the grounds and directly adjacent to the Irving Oil Fieldhouse. I'm going to get into the project details and the location in a moment, but I did for a second just wanted to sort of take a little bit of a step back to remind folks about where we are currently and how this came to be one of the catalytic projects. Of course, our existing municipal arenas right now are all single ice pads that are well over 50 years old. They are at the end of their service life, and we've been planning and working towards replacement. This was supported by PlaySJ, our strategic plan for recreation, which recommended replacement with new modern multi-pad arena complexes. So the scope of the new facility is intended to combine the arena replacement strategy with recreational and social supports for the neighborhood there, which is quite lacking in amenities. So we have done some conceptual design and costing. And in support of this project as well, the Fundy Region Services Commission has completed an arena needs assessment to confirm facility demand, and that was a precondition of support from the province. So what you have here is a rendering of the floor plans for the proposed facility. In gray there you have the existing Irving Oil Fieldhouse with two multipurpose sports fields and a track going around one of the fields, as well as a lot of change room space and a community center space. some renderings of the combined facility. You can see the existing Irving Oil Fieldhouse is located at the background there, and at the foreground is the new addition, which includes, of course, 2 regulation-sized ice surfaces. There is additional space there as well for other programming elements for recreation programming, arts and culture, as well as the relocation of the East Library branch. Another couple renderings here, all of which will be shared to the Shape Your City site. And again, so the elements of that, 2 regulation-sized ice pads, relocated East Library branch, additional programming space, space for a community developer and or a wellness clinic, some space there for community meetings. And really this new part, these new portions are intended to integrate with and complement the programming that exists currently at the Irving Oil Fieldhouse. So why this location? This is an existing regional center already. It's got a lot of nearby amenities with restaurants, hotels, and shopping. It's easily accessible by car or via public transit. There's the opportunity to co-locate the ice surfaces with an existing arena or existing recreational facility. Many of the required infrastructure already exists at this facility with allowance there for parking, stormwater infrastructure, water and sewage services. And this does contemplate some additional amenities to better service the local community. One of the benefits would be we're seeking to integrate the energy systems of the new arenas with the Irving Oil Fieldhouse, which will help meet our net zero goals. So the estimated construction cost is around $48 million for this project in 2023 dollars. So that's for the full build out. Council has previously approved a funding plan for this that would see up to $3 million put away into reserves each year for 5 years with an additional $5 million of borrowing. There are some elements of this financial plan that'll need support from other levels of government. So we are keeping a close lookout for funding applications. Indeed, next month there is going to be another intake for the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Program. So we anticipate we're going to be before you in early September to seek your endorsement for a funding application there. And we'll certainly be reaching out to potential other levels of government for a discussion about funding. We anticipate that the project development is going to be done in partnership with the Greater St. John Fieldhouse, Inc., who owns the existing facility and has a land option on the proposed second phase. The YMCA is going to be involved as an operating partner. They are already managing the existing facility under contract with the Fieldhouse, Inc., and they actually provide community center services out of that location as well under contract with the City of St. John. The YMCA and the Greater St. John Fieldhouse, Inc. Will be undertaking a joint fundraising effort as well through the community with a target of $5 million. So there is a budget here for detailed development. We do anticipate some other investments are going to be necessary to get to the point of being shovel ready. And the breakdown is as you see below. This has gone through the project in high level, but as of tomorrow, the city will be launching its Shape Your City site with all these renderings, all the project details there for anybody in the community who's interested. They can tune in there. We'll share that link more publicly. Essentially, the recommendation before you here this evening is that the city enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Greater St. John Fieldhouse, Inc. and the YMCA, as laid out in this slide here. The second recommendation as well, that Council approve the withdrawal from reserves of up to $3 million to support the further development of this project. And before I open it up to any questions, I did just want to turn it back over to the CAO for some comments.
Thank you, Mike. I did want to take an opportunity to extend thanks to the board of the Exhibition Association of the city and the County of St. John, who are the owners of the land adjacent to the to the field house where the multiplex would be located, as they're supportive of this project and are critical to the advancement of this project, and extend thanks for their selling it to us at a nominal fee of $1. This is a critical piece to which the project could not proceed without the land. In addition, the YMCA and the field house are also critical and key partners, and I want to thank them. Joining us this evening is Bill Mackin, Chair of the Field House Association. And while Shiloh Boucher can't attend, I also want to extend thanks to her. She's the CEO of the YMCA of Southwestern New Brunswick, and they're critical in terms of advancing this catalytic project for us.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Ogden, over to you first for a question.
First, I want to tell you that this is just the excellent location. When I was chair of Parks and Recreation, we identified a number of places, and the exhibition park area was one area that we talked about a 2 or 3 pad, and because of the highway, because of the close proximity to the valley, which has all kinds of kids, to the malls and all that. So I think the location's perfect. And we do need to upgrade. We have kids who are practicing in Fredericton and Moncton now on artificial fields and rinks. Get calls all the time. If you do go ahead with the artificial field at the site, you should talk to the Simons High School group, who also are wanting to build an artificial field at the site, because I don't think you want 2 artificial fields in the same end of town, because we identified an artificial field in West St. John. And we also identified that we should have a double rink in West St. John, because 2 rinks have been lost. One, the Simons Arena, was promised that it would be replaced. It never happened. And now we've closed the Bellier Arena. So that puts us behind Fredericton Moncton again. So I've also, hopefully, that we will build 2 new rinks in West St. John, because we don't want to build these 2 rinks and then close another 2 rinks, because that means St. John will be behind the ball again. So we know that the Gorman, last summer, the roof almost collapsed during a national tournament. We know the Bellier should be, was closed. And we know the Beaverbrook's still a good rink. And then what happens to the Gorman. So I strongly suggest that this is a good site, good idea, but we don't close any rinks, because we've lost 4 fields and 2 rinks. And we think about a double rink and an artificial field in West St. John. We identified the area behind Barn Hill and St. Rose, but Peter Murray Arena, which is now next to Beaverbrook, the oldest arena, is in really bad shape. And we don't want to take recreation away from priority neighborhoods, because those poor kids are not going to get on that bus and go out there. No matter what you say, what you do, I've been coaching all my life, they're not going to happen. So if we take recreation away from priority neighborhoods, that's going to add to our poverty in St. John. This is great for tournaments, and it's great for the people of East St. John, which need arenas. But we've got to look at this from a broader picture and where St. John is compared to Moncton and Fredericton. We went backwards in recreation, and that added to our poverty. So I fully support the site. I think it's great that the Exhibition Association, nobody has an Exhibition Association, has stepped up to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Councillor Harris, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just curious about the funding model here. You know, I'm looking at we're looking at a $5 million capital fundraising campaign that we've got to put on to get buy-in from the public. And we're asking to take $3 million out of reserves right now to throw at this thing. Do we have any sense of why that number specifically is needed? I don't think we have a full costing estimate done. As far as I know, this is still a D-level plan. Now that we have these renderings, which are beautiful. I just don't understand sort of the thinking behind the $3 million withdrawal at this point.
Yeah, through your worship, to the councillor, that's a good question. We do have Estimates that we feel at this point are somewhere between level like Class D estimates and Class C estimates. They were done on some more than just conceptual design. Basically, as far as we could get before the cutoff for the application last time around. So we feel it is going to be beneficial to lock those costs in further, do a little bit more work to at least get to Class C estimates, maybe a little bit more. I guess the benefit of that is there's a couple aspects. Number one, you get better certainty in terms of what your costs are. So ultimately, when you do apply, if there are overruns, the city would usually end up being on the hook for those. So this would allow you to sort of limit your risk on that front. But it also, in terms of timing, gets you closer to being shovel ready. So what our intent would be is not necessarily run right out now and engage consulting service to do full detailed design. But we may seek some funding support from other levels of government to get that portion of it done right now. Getting the authority to tap into this amount right now just allows us to be a little bit more flexible and speedy when it comes to taking the next steps on this project.
Okay, so within that, I know we are going to look for other levels of government. We have bilateral funding agreements that we can go after. And you mentioned one that's coming up. You laid out sort of a rough estimate. Is that just based on past experiences with bilateral funding projects, or are we looking at funding models currently? Are there any new ones coming online that we're eyeballing? I guess to me, it's like, I'm looking at our investment as a city and wondering, are there other places other pots of money we can shop for to get those ratios differentiated?
Mm-hmm.
So it's less off our end
Yeah.
and off municipal funds and more off federal funds, provincial funds and whatnot.
Yeah, I guess the numbers come from similar projects that have been done in the past. So they're indicative of where we think we're going to be on that. And in terms of funding programs, the opportunity that is before us right now is on the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Fund. This is exactly the type of project that would typically be eligible within that. And depending on how the criteria is applied, there would be anywhere from, I think, 13 to roughly 20 or 25 million available through that program. I understand that's federal funding only. So it does open the door to seeking other funding from provincial coffers to basically come up with the full amount.
Okay, and do we have any sense that once we have those final numbers from the other levels of funding, is there any chance of that money coming back to us and does that just go back into reserves if we do not needing to spend all of that? From our portion, I mean.
Yeah, I guess the funding picture, really who ends up contributing what. There's still a lot of work that needs to happen on that front. We'll take the first step, I anticipate next month with a submission. But between now and then also we will be circling around to our funding partners to, make sure they're aware of this project and it's important to this council and this community and try to seek as much support as we can for it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Radwan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is a great news story for Ward 4. Thank you, Commissioner Hugenholtz and your staff. You've done a great job. I just wanted to clarify that $3 million in reserves, that's actually reserves that this council has put away for this project specifically. So we actually, I think, have 5 million now in reserves for this. So we're not taking from anything else. This is one of those things that you absolutely need to have for people to want to live, work, and play in the city. And part of the ward has a 90% child poverty rate. That is so high. It's the highest in the city. Having the library there can certainly uplift people out of poverty because education is key, right? And the other thing, having a community development officer, which hopefully will get that position filled in that area, will be fantastic too. And then, people that can't afford to play in recreation, to have like free skates like we do in all of our rinks, be able to go to the library, like this is going to enhance that area so much. So this is great news. It is a lot of money but you know what? We haven't done a project like this in a while, and so this is really exciting. And as far as the province and federal government goes, I hope that they'll support it, because this is how you keep your tax base in the city. And you bring more tax base, more investors, more people wanting to build apartments, to build business in the city, is to have these services there. So thank you very much.
Councillor Sullivan, over to you.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, thank you to Mr. Hugenholtz and the team that's been working on this. I think council's been dying to talk about this more publicly, and we needed to get to this point to get there. But co-locating 2 brand-new ICE services with the library, thinking outside the box and having flexible facilities for recreation, and that recreation could be sports, it could be music. I just have this picture of a family coming in for a hockey tournament on one side, soccer practice on the other, and somebody's going to practice bagpipes in and around the library. That is really looking at the future of recreation. Lots of people play hockey and speed skate, but not everybody does. Lots of people play soccer, but not everybody does. And for those who like recreation and maybe they're not athletic, that's there too. Like, this is an incredible, in the big scope of the word, recreation hub, in the perfect spot in the city of St. John. Yes, it supports an area that needs more support on one end. It's in the middle of hotels, shopping, and restaurants on the other. Fantastic. So looking forward to seeing more of it rolled out. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. It's very good. Councillor Harris, back to you to wrap us up.
Yeah, sorry, I had one more piece, and I know it was over time, so thank you,
That's fine.
Mayor. Do we have any sense on when we're going, I guess maybe a better question would be, at what point do we see sort of a neighborhood integration piece? Like, I know, having lived in Forest Hills for a while, there is some trail systems that run up and around Forest Hills that go up to the school area that kind of create some of that inner neighborhood connection. But I know specifically to the Glen area, of course, there's sidewalks, but I'm thinking more on the lines of placemaking, integrating in with the neighborhood, softening some of that built environment with some greenery, with some trees, with some benches. I just don't know at what point we would see that, or if that's sort of the next step, or if it's 3 steps down the line. I'm just curious.
Through you, to the councillor, that's a very good question. I wouldn't say we have all the answers on that yet. I do know that later this year, we do intend to do a needs assessment of the community that would be serviced from some of those project elements. That'll better inform what use we anticipate from the local neighborhood there. And I think we're also going to have to look at, physically the connection from the neighborhood to the facility and see what we can do in that regard.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Commissioner, thank you very much. Thanks to you and your team. It's a great project. It's a great project for the city. It's a great project for the whole region. It's an exciting project. It's great to see it happen. And it's this team as well that's had the foresight to see that and put the money away for it every year. And it's this team that got it going. I guess at the end of the day, came up with the idea. And I know our staff are doing the work to make it happen. And it's been really great with the CFO working with us to make sure that we have the funds to put in with it. It's all been very good. So it is an exciting project, really looking forward to it. So thank you for being up there to present that. I will just say, since I have an audience, that what we're doing in the city is called asset mapping. And so we look at our assets just like you would look at your own vehicle and say, is my vehicle at the end of its life? Should I be putting more money into it? Should I get rid of my vehicle? Should I start taking the bus? Should I get a new vehicle? What am I doing? And so we do that now with all of our assets, and that's a strategic way. So it's an unemotional way to make an investment. So when we looked at the Bellier, that rink I think was built maybe in the 60s. We looked at the Bellier a couple of years ago, not this team, the team before. The asset mapping, the numbers just didn't work, and it was time to retire it. And so it's been used for parts for some of the other older rinks that we have, but it's time to move on from that rink. And so this is why we're going with these 2 sheets out at the field house. It makes more sense. You attract tournaments, and when I was a kid, which wasn't yesterday, my brothers played hockey. The bag was a lot smaller than it is today. Today, the bags are bigger, all the equipment is bigger. Most kids don't walk to hockey anymore. You need a car to get to hockey. So it makes sense to combine our recreational assets because it makes, as you build that critical mass, they become something extraordinary. So that's where we are with this. So the motion was up there shortly. You've all got it in your kit, so I'll take a mover, Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Lowe on a seconder. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you so much, team. Next item, City Clerk.
Next, we had advertised our public hearings to start at 6:30. So I would suggest we skip over members' comments and go right to item 9.1 under public hearings. And this particular item is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment with a PAC report and staff presentation for a property at 199 to 201 Union Street.
Okay, I'm sending this over to Mr. McKeel for the introduction.
This evening's first public hearing is for an application to amend Schedule 1, active ground floor use of the zoning bylaw that was submitted by 724-745 NB Limited for the property at 199-201 Union Street. The application would allow for ground floor residential uses to occur at this property. The application has been evaluated by staff and the Planning Advisory Committee. Included in your package is the recommendation to amend the zoning bylaw. I'll now turn it over to Yeva Matson, planner, for the staff presentation on this file.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So as said, this is a text amendment to Schedule I of the active ground floor use for 199 to 201 Union Street. In the zoning bylaw, we have Schedule I, which dictates, Schedule I, which dictates which areas of the Central Peninsula will have ground floor commercial. You can see a snapshot up on the screen here of the top half of that map. Areas in red are required to have ground floor commercial of at least 75% of the ground floor area, and areas in yellow are only encouraged to have that ground floor commercial. The applicant would like to see his property removed from the red required designation and designated encouraged. His property is in the upper right-hand corner there, close to the Waterloo corner. The applicant would like to create 2 ground floor residential units in the property on the western portion of his site, which is only half of the building. This part of the building has been vacant for a few years, and they would just like the option of a residential component. The eastern half of the building will remain commercial as it has a long-term tenant. The subject site is located at the Waterloo Village area on the north side of Union Street, across from Freshville, and it's at the very edge of that required ground floor commercial area, and the area is characterized by a mixed-use commercial and residential. The site benefits from its location, which is walkable to many community and government services, medical care, retail, and recreation, and it's very close to transit hubs when there's not a lot of construction. In the image above, you can see the subject site. The 2 new units would be on the left half of that building, and then the access would actually be off the left hand of the building as well, for which they have an easement for access and egress. The only changes to the front of the building would be the removal of the current commercial entrance doors, and this would help maintain an unchanged exterior and allow for that retention of kind of the existing commercial storefront design, which kind of helps retain that streetscape pattern. This is Union Street looking east with the subject site on the left. As said, that right half of the building would remain unchanged and retain its lower floor commercial tenant. Also visible at the kind of edge of the building there is a entrance to some parking. Despite parking exemptions, this building does have on-site parking. And then here's just Union Street looking west for some, to figure out where you are. The subject site is located within the primary center within the municipal plan, and the primary center incorporates the northwestern portion of the Central Peninsula. It's an area noted for commercial, institutional, and community uses that serve not just the local residents, but the greater area. And it's also noted for a mixed-use development incorporating higher density residential uses. Policy LU 17 also encourages the active promotion of the uptown as an ideal place to live for families, older adults, students, and young professionals. And the proposed development of additional dwelling units would benefit those looking for residential space in the uptown. This site also falls under the Central Peninsula Secondary Plan in regards to the Waterloo Village area, and the proposal represents an opportunity to support additional density while retaining the community character. Since the front is to retain that existing commercial storefront design, it would retain streetscape patterns and enable the space to be used for commercial in the future. Site is currently zoned Uptown Commercial, which is a flexible mixed-use zone that does generally allow for a variety of commercial and residential uses, and that proposed use of the site with ground floor residential would conform to the zoning standards. The site is located within the parking exemption area as noted as well, but there would be parking on site. Letters were sent to landowners within 100 meters of the subject property on July 2nd, and public notice was posted on July 28th. No letters have been received. Sorry, correction, that one letter has been received in opposition. PAC and staff are in alignment and recommend that Common Council redesignate on Schedule I of the zoning bylaw map, moving this property from active ground floor use required to active ground floor use encouraged. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so tonight there's a public hearing for this item, and so I will open the public hearing, and I'll ask if there's anyone here this evening who would like to speak against the application for 199-201 Union Street. Come forward and then give us your name, please. And for you, I guess, who you're representing.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nancy Tisington. I'm the Executive Director for Uptown St. John, the local business improvement association of which this property resides in. I just have a letter here to read for you. Uptown St. John would like to express their concern over the conversion of the commercial frontage of 199 Union Street from an active ground floor use to a ground floor residential use. The proposed amendment to Schedule I of the city's zoning bylaw to change 199 Union Street from the active ground floor use required designation to the active ground floor use encouraged. Designation undermines the integrity of the established development pattern and sets a concerning precedent. Uptown St. John is requesting that council not approve this precedent-setting amendment, or at minimum, delay the adoption of the proposed amendment and direct staff to engage with members of the BIA. The Uptown is the heart of our city. It is the hub of economic activity and a cultural center of the region. One of the strengths of the Uptown is the intact, dense, mixed-use urban form. The historic active ground floor frontages along key uptown corridors have played a critical role in the reinvestment and reinvigoration of the area. Active ground floor uses like shops, restaurants, and services create a vibrant pedestrian environment that enhances the sense of community and safety, creating an engaging atmosphere to live, work, and visit. Removing the active ground floor uses along its intact ground floor commercial frontage like Union Street introduces a gap that is likely not to be restored. We understand that the unprecedented challenge our city is facing with respect to housing. We understand that we need to increase the supply of housing, specifically affordable, attainable, and adequate housing for all residents. The proposed amendment will facilitate the creation of new housing units. However, the impact of the new units needs to be balanced against the potential impact to the surrounding businesses. There are opportunities for council to seek a compromise with the applicant through implementing its existing development framework. The city's zoning bylaw permits a live-work unit, which maintains the active ground floor frontage while providing for residential dwelling in the same space. The live-work unit allows for substantial flexibility in integrating housing into commercial concentrations throughout the Uptown, while ensuring the integrity of the commercial frontages are maintained. The proposed amendment appears to be in contravention of the intention of the zoning bylaw, specifically as it relates to protecting the traditional built form of the Union Street corridor. There is sufficient flexibility to integrate residential units without the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw. Uptown was an active participant in the development of the Central Business Secondary Plan. It leveraged members' funds to help the city to move the project forward. We're also part of the Neighborhood Action Team. Union Street was discussed at length through the Central Peninsula Plan process and its importance highlighted by its dedicated section in the plan. We remind council that the Central Business Plan sets direction for Union Street. I'm going to read an excerpt from that. The corridor direction is Union Street will be a complete street with wide sidewalks, street trees, bike lanes, well-marked crosswalks, creating a safe and comfortable experience for all users. The development of vacant and underutilized lands and key development sites along the corridor will showcase modern architecture while creating new housing. commercial and cultural uses. Union Street will be a draw for entrepreneurs, artists, and small-scale commercial enterprises, creating a sense of place that is unique to the corridor and aesthetically different from the uptown neighborhood. Union Street will be transformed from an east-west traffic corridor to be mixed-use neighborhood with an improved and inviting public realm, reconnecting Waterloo Village to the rest of the peninsula. The amendment to remove the active ground floor frontage jeopardizes the direction of the Union Street corridor and puts Waterloo Village at increased risk of disconnection. We have significant concern that the removal of the active ground frontage of 199 Union Street creates a precedent that will impact Waterloo Village. Waterloo Village is a vulnerable neighborhood in many ways and relies on Union Street to connect it with the rest of the uptown area. Uptown provides services within the BIA boundary, but must scale those services based on the presence of members. Creating a disconnect between Union Street and Waterloo just jeopardizes the maintenance support Uptown provides to the city's operational efforts in the area, including beautification efforts, sidewalk cleaning, flower beds, and art installations. In closing, Uptown reiterates that the very essence of Union Street is become, over the past number of years, if you look beyond that street, what has come in, the Union House, the dance studio as well. We're seeing the difference in having commercial because we actually are exhausted in the other part of the BIA. So to have more space for us to have an opportunity for small entrepreneurs and small business to come in is needed. There is a need. We urge council to reconsider the staff and the PAC recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I do have a question here for you from Councillor Harris. Over to you, Councillor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Nancy, thanks for coming. I appreciate the perspective. It's probably, like, as somebody who, put housing at the forefront of what I ran on, it's probably the only issue that fascinates me that could get me to think otherwise about conversion to residential. So they've been vacant. I know, I was in there a year and a half ago helping Haven, get the place ready. And they seem to be doing well. They're creating a bit of a vibrancy around there, new audience, new type of venue. Do we know who's trying to quarterback businesses like that? Like, I'm talking about the smaller scale. I know Envision is sort of headhunting bigger firms to try to, make the road a little easier for bigger businesses to move here and set up. But who's doing that quarterback work at the local level? I know you tend to the business improvement area and you advocate for those businesses, but it seems like there's a gap here. Because there is a number of types of businesses we don't have in the uptown. And I know that, the exodus from Brunswick Square has been a problem, but I know that it's also a hard landlord to work with. So what's the gap here? Is there nobody quarterbacking sort of a good business proposition for this space? Or do you know? I guess just curious.
Yeah, I wasn't at the PAC. My question would be, what has been done to have a commercial real estate person look after this area? I don't know who that is. I know I have my own personal ideas because I live uptown. I've been here for 10 years. This is actually my first time into a public hearing to kind of really go up against a member. But we want to keep it intact with commercial no matter what, because once you change that from commercial to residential, it's very difficult to get that back. You can't actually ask people to leave to put in commercial. So I'm not sure what the level of development the person that owns it has done. But there would be a bit of a gap, but we haven't had a conversation with them either. So is there things that we could help with? Sure. We have a facade grant up to $2,000 that could help with the outside of your building if you're looking to jazz it up, make it look more, enticing for a business to come up. We do have folks like the Connection Works that actually have a lot of entrepreneurs that come out of there that are always looking for incubator space once they leave to look over. But to answer your question, that small gap, it's not in our wheelhouse, but we certainly would provide any data and put them in connection with Envision for sure.
Okay.
We'd help facilitate as best we could. Without having long-term relationships, we could certainly help direct.
Councillor Ogden, over to you.
I know, Nancy, the housing crisis has compounded this situation. I also think that putting all the social services in one area is creating a critical mass, is attracting more and more people because of the need. And I think, like when you look at Finland, where people need mental health issues, this is where we need the province. But I think by spreading people out with the needs, one affected area, I mean, I grew up, we had a number of businesses uptown, and when I look at Waterloo Street, which used to be the second most busiest street in the city, and that end of Union Street, I think, what's happened? And I think the housing problem and the social problem with trauma and low, because our incomes are so low in this country now, less disposable income, that it's really created a bad situation for everybody. And I sometimes wonder if we spread housing out more, make sure more people have more mental health issues to deal with trauma, because a lot of their drugs and everything is a trauma. So I think what's happened in this area can be fixed, but really Waterloo Street and Union Street, that end of Waterloo Street, because we restored Loyalist House, they put the liquor store there, and then they built that brand new building across the street. That end of Union Street's in pretty good shape. So I think that we've got to solve the social issue, wages, trauma, and housing, and I think that's what's probably put this building in jeopardy for losing commercial development.
Okay.
Can I just remark on that?
Sure.
Your worship? 76% of the businesses in the uptown, the 26 blocks, are your small business that support the people that live here. Those are amenities that they rely on. And I think that it won't be just this particular, it's this one because this is the one that has come up. It's if we start doing this, then we're going to end up having a downtown that's residential. They don't exist. Downtowns don't exist with just residential on their main corridors. We like the densification. We love to see the build. We can't wait to have those residents and citizens come in. But to take a main floor, ground space that is different than what the plan had said that we just adopted 4 years ago is concerning for us. That's why we're here this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Radwan?
Thank you, Mayor. Nancy, do you know, thanks for coming. I appreciate your insight. And I had a hard time when I was reading through this because I know a lot of the time, doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, whether it be Africa or Europe or, even around here, the residential on the top will feed through to the business and then make the uptown cores prosperous. So, but I'm just wondering, do you know how much vacancy you have in the BIA for commercial space?
I don't, I can tell you anecdotally right now, I think I'm looking at maybe just on Canterbury Street, there's one space. As soon as they come up, they're usually gone. I guess it would depend on the street. There's some that are hubs that are a little bit more. But I do look at Union House for coming up in the corner. And I also look at Holly and Ken Singh's residential upstairs and then having the dance downstairs, which is still really for urban planning. And I'm not an urban planner, but I've certainly lived it day in and day out. And I certainly know that once we start with one, where will the next one go? Because they can't find a commercial space. We need to keep the commercial space for commercial on the ground level.
I will say, I know this has been vacant for 3 years, but one thing that I will say is 13 years ago, King Street was about half vacant. And I remember opening a business there and my husband saying, "Are you sure that this is the main street in the city?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And I said, "Just be patient." And as we stuck it out longer and longer and longer, another business would open up. And now I don't think there's a vacancy. Right. So anyway, food for thought. Anyway,
Certainly not on the ground floor that I can think of. And a lot of those folks that were at Brunswick Square have moved out to the main level. So
yeah, well, there's different challenges in the malls. Yeah.
Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Worship. Very quickly, Nancy, thanks for coming in and sharing this with us. Have you spoken to the owner of the building?
I have not.
You haven't. Do you know what was in the space before it became vacant?
Well, I go back to the scout shop, but maybe there was something in there prior to.
And how long ago was that?
Oh, my goodness, that's been a long time.
20
Yeah,
years?
yeah,
So
yeah.
20 years ago, there was a scout shop there.
Yeah, so much has changed. I mean, Haven Hall would be the closest semblance of having commercial there, like Haven Hall is right next door. I do believe it's the same landlord.
Just for clarification, did you say that the scout shop has been there for 20 years, but it's gone now?
Yes, it
So
has.
how long has it been gone?
Oh, gosh, 4 or 5 years?
4 or
Yeah,
5
just
years.
prior to, I want to say around the COVID. 7?
Okay.
Okay. All right, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, so it's been vacant how many years, Nancy? Questions to you.
Oh, well, it's been vacant from I've been
Okay,
here
no,
10
but-
years, so it's been at least 7, 8 years that
Okay,
it's been
so it's been-
vacant. And then
that's what-
it's been sold since then. In the last 4 years, nothing has happened.
I guess my question was, if it's been vacant for 7 years and we're in a housing crisis, like, and the wording is encourage, not change, but encourage people. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, I got another one. Councillor Norton, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Nancy, thanks for coming in, and thank you to your board for, having you come in and voice your opinion on this one. Using residential space and commercial space is you go to a lot of forums, it's kind of a no-go in urban planning. You go to Halifax, or whether you go to Calgary, or wherever you go, it's just it's one of their pillars. Is there anything that the city can be doing to better encourage, whether it's accessibility along that route? I think we've heard 4 years ago there was a plan there, but is there anything that you would like us to hear that, hey guys, we would have better luck if these are some of the things that we would do along those things, whether it's low-hanging fruit or whether it's something more ambitious?
I'm going to share, through you to Councillor Norton. I'm going to share this. I have a colleague that just purchased residential on Sydney Street.
Sure.
He didn't have much for residential people coming in. Since the city's gone in there and done a bunch of work, they're knocking on his door. So it certainly is curb appeal, if you will. The curb appeal has certainly come up. So I would say that Union Street for curb appeal, I know that the board at Uptown St. John has directed us as staff to make sure that we put banners up there, make it look better. It is literally just one of those, how do we make it look better with what we have as a $400,000 or $525,000 budget annually? But what can the city do? Maybe we can prioritize that area. I mean, look at Charlotte Street and Union right now. Look at Charlotte Street, so close to it, a brand new streetscape. I haven't seen the final drawings yet, but I know they're up there working very hard. So that's going to be beautiful. So if we could just come to the next level and go to Union and keep that open from Waterloo. And you talk about Halifax. I spent a number of years there. They just blew up Cogswell Street so that they could make it more accessible
Yes, they did.
for people. So that's a pretty big ask, but having that continuity is very, very important. And I would love to see Waterloo Street have a business improvement association to support those businesses that are up there.
Thank you. I guess, thank you for those, for lack of a better phrase, words of wisdom. I see what Nick does on a daily basis in your team to see some of the spillover effect, moving in that area would give us a better fighting chance along that corridor. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's it for you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to have to ask 3 times, so I've asked once. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against 199 to 201 Union Street, the application to put residential on the main floor versus commercial, which is what it is now? And I'll ask for the 3rd time if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application for 199 to 201 Union Street application. Okay, I'll ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application for 199-201 Union Street to put the commercial on the ground floor, or to put the residential on the ground floor. I'll ask for the 2nd time if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of putting the residential on the ground floor at 199-201 Union Street. And I'll ask for the 3rd time if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application tonight. I'll close the public hearing, and I'll note that the recommendation is to approve that, so I'll leave that up to council. And I'll take a motion, I guess, since I don't have any. Councillor Redwine?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question for staff.
Oh, sorry, I
If
meant
I
to ask that.
can. Yeah.
If anyone has a question for staff. Eva, back to the podium.
Yeah. Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I'm just wondering, so this is, for me, I am kind of struggling with this one. We desperately need housing, like, so badly. And so this is making it a little challenging. But like, when I always think of commercial on the front corridor, I'm trying to look at the plans, and if is the way that it's set up, could they actually have residential in the back and commercial in the front? I think it is divided like that, right?
Through your worship to Councillor. So at the moment, they could have 25% of the ground floor be residential in whatever arrangement they would prefer. So they could have a unit at the front or in the rear. It's just that 50% of the building's already commercial, and then the 50% we're talking about, they want to try to put 2 in, whereas at this moment, by right, they could put in 1 unit for 25%.
And what is the total square footage of that area?
The entire square footage is 1,000 square meters, I believe, but that includes some of the parking area behind it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, so if even the back end was residential, that would still knock these businesses out of the BIA, right?
I'm unsure about knocking it out of the BIA. We're not really in the business improvement area. Like, it's not in the...
That might be a question for general counsel. I don't know. Or, I don't know. I'm just thinking it's bylaw, actually, right? So who would be able to answer? It's a bylaw question, so.
It's a bylaw question, yeah, for the BIA, but yeah,
The BIA is not part of the bylaw.
no.
You're not part of this one, but like, by not having that commercial space,
Right.
BIA loses people out of their BIA if it's not commercial, I would
Right.
assume, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So they have
even-
no one there now,
Mhm.
and then they would lose that space.
But they still pay property tax as a commercial property. So the BIA is not losing
No.
by it being vacant.
Technically, the 201 and 199 are like the music hall and this space are the exact same PID, so they would be considered for the same tax and everything. So they would still be commercial in nature. They're still uptown commercial zone. They're just allowed to have residential as a component.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think that there might be some issues with that. And I can say, one thing that I will say is, as somebody who had a business for 10 years as part of the BIA and now currently does not, I can say without the BIA, I probably would not have kept my business going for 10 years. So this can have a massive impact, starting to take commercial properties out of there. But we're in a housing crisis, so I'm looking forward to hearing from people sitting next to me here, see what they have to say, but I'm kind of feeling a little uncomfortable with it, unfortunately. I don't know if there's a way to do this so that there's some residential, but not the front end.
Unfortunately, at this time, they could do residential in that front. If they only wanted to use 25%, they wouldn't have to be here. They could do that by right tomorrow, so.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harris, over to you.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this one a lot, and again, I don't think I ever thought I would when it comes to a housing piece, but I think for this one, you know, we're in a housing crisis, everybody keeps saying it, but it's very important to know, we're not in a housing crisis for everybody. If your household's making over $80,000 a year, you can still achieve sort of that 30% threshold for cost to shelter, which is sort of that sustainability model. As far as we know, we don't have any proposals here for this to be affordable housing.
They are in talks with the province, but that all depends on the zoning and funding and.
Yeah, and as a for-profit actor, we can't, they're not here either to validate sort of the modeling here and who it's for. We've heard around this council table tons of promises about affordable housing, only to see them 4 years later buy out their contracts from the province and then jack rents up, and then we are dealing with somebody who's unhoused. I don't think I can support this as it is, just because we don't have the proponent here in front of us advocating for their own project, because I would think that we have failed somewhere along the lines in this city to quarterback an entrepreneur into this space. There's at least 3 or 4 different types of businesses that don't exist uptown. Pet store, hardware store come to mind. Dykeman's is up there. It's close. It has some things. And there's some specialty hardware stores like Eddie's and Gray Bar and Harrison Rose. But as far as a generic one, it doesn't exist, and a pet store doesn't exist. Lots of dog owners, cat owners uptown. So I just think there's some piece to this we're missing. And I know Connection Works has entrepreneurs there, and I know Bob McVicker's been trying to list this now for 3 or 4 years. But you know, there's just something missing here about what's failed and who's come knocking and what barriers were in their way that we could have moved. So, yeah, without sort of a sense to it, it doesn't make sense to me to jeopardize this for the next 50 years as a commercial space. So anyway.
Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. I won't rehash what's been said because I'll ask my question with a different angle. We have a noise bylaw in this community. That is a noisy little section of Union and Waterloo Street. There's a new club that's opened at the start of Sydney. There's the existing club that's been there. I don't know if you've ever been to Haven Music Hall, but those parties are equally as fun as they are loud. How does that get measured with having residential right there? Because I know I will get calls about it. Because it will be a very, 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 very loud place to live.
Through worship to your councillor, I can't answer for the developer, but at PAC, the question was also posed about noise, I believe, and he had communicated that they had soundproofed the building in multiple different ways since they had bought it and renovated it, because they do have residents above the music hall at the moment. And
Sure. How does that measure if the only facade change to the front is the front door? Windows aren't super soundproof, right? Like you've got floor to ceiling windows on the ground floor. How does that manage from a sound perspective? How do we manage that from a bylaw enforcement perspective? Because at some point we should say, we kind of set them up if we did this. We kind of set them up to be really noisy. Is it okay? Do we then have to enforce our noise bylaw and start slapping Haven and the clubs beside it with those?
I mean, I believe it's the police that enforces the noise bylaw, and if it's being broken, it can be enforced. But on your point about having neighbors near noisy buildings, there is upper floor residential in that neighborhood, and I don't know how much of a difference.
A significant
floor
one.
mix.
Ground floor versus second floor is significant. And I just clarify, it would change the way they pay their taxes and pay to the BIA. It would shift two components of the way they're taxed.
I don't know if there's anyone here who can clarify that, because it's one PID.
From the zoning perspective, it is a commercial unit. That is all
Right.
I can answer.
Right,
Exactly.
They pay their taxes based on what's commercial, what's multi-unit residential. So
They-
that would shift,
they're one-
and then they would stop.
I don't know if it would, though. I don't know if it would. I'm not sure it would. They may end up, anyways, that I guess that's neither here nor there. All right, I'm going to go to Councillor Sullivan next. Here we go.
Thanks, Your Worship. I guess I have the advantage of having been at PAC, and this is a land use. So, with respect, whether it's business or not, going through my head, where taxes get paid that aren't the city of St. John, with respect, I'm less worried about. It's unfortunate that tonight we have Uptown St. John. At PAC, we had the proponent. So they didn't get to talk at either of those meetings and didn't have a conversation in the middle. But as I understand, what's before us is a recommendation to change from mandatory to encourage. So it's not being changed to strictly residential. I think any conversation I have had anywhere, the preference would be that it be ground floor commercial. And really, I just wanted to clarify those points, that even going forward, it would not require a change in zoning. If they started building it and making it residential, and somebody came knocking saying, I want to put a commercial use in there, they wouldn't need to come back to rezone it. This still allows for that opportunity.
Your worship to council, you are correct. It is the Uptown Commercial Zone is meant to be a flexible mixed use, so you can have ground floor residential, but you can also, of course, have that commercial aspect. This is just removing it from that schedule as mandatory ground floor commercial to the encouraged, which just adds more flexibility. But the zone itself at the base does allow for ground floor residential or commercial.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ava, so I'm seeing in here that it's been vacant at least 3 years. Before that, Matt Doherty was saying it was vacant. Do we have any idea how long that was? Has it been 7 years total?
It has been indicated that it's been about 7 years. The current applicant has only owned it for about 3 or 4, and it's been vacant their entire time despite renovations.
So there's a problem with that space. And if we're going to wait for the city to dress up Union Street so that it becomes more attractive, we're going to be waiting a long time because that's not in the plan, unfortunately. So if I'm the owner of this building, I need to make something happen in there. And I am a business owner and I'm a building owner. So I get it. These guys need to make something happen in there. So I can understand EIA wanting to keep it as commercial, but part of the building is still commercial. I think if we don't allow these guys to do this, to put some residential in there, they end up losing this building perhaps and make the situation worse. So, you know, we can debate this all night long, but as Councillor Sullivan just pointed out there, this isn't going to stop this thing from going back to commercial. So I'm okay with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I'm on the same page as Councillor Stewart there. I'm looking at this. It's been vacant. They do have commercial in there. That's going to stay. It'll have conversion space for 3 apartments, affordable spaces. I know there's nothing that says you are going to have to be affordable, but they're saying it's going to be affordable, and I guess you got to hope that they mean it. To his point, Councillor Stewart, the building is going to fall down. It may have residents upstairs, but if there's nothing downstairs holding it, it's going to fall down and nobody's going to want it. So I think that if it's encouraged, then if a business opportunity that comes along, wants to go in there, hey, great, it's wonderful. In the meantime, it's going to house people that are unhoused right now. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Hickey, have you not been around twice, or have you? It's
Yeah,
2 rounds.
I just had a clarification question for Eva. Because the narrative was that it may go back to commercial, but we were presented with the plans that have apartments in it. Like, I understand the zoning's flexible, but like, you know what, it's going to be residential.
Through your worship to
Right.
Councillor,
Yes.
if we remove it out of that mandatory zone, then they would just have the flexibility. I can't answer for the business owner on what they will plan to do in the future, but they could switch back.
And it was summer of 2019 that the Scout Shop closed. So 5 years.
5 years empty, that's a long time. Okay, Councillor Harris, is this your
No,
third
this is
time
the-
around?
This is the last round. It's
Okay,
my
I'm going
second
to
time.
kill you too in a minute.
It's my second round.
Okay, it's only your second time? All right,
It's
you're good to go.
second round. But it's really quick, Your Worship. I bought
Okay.
something there from the Scout Shop, like in 2019 when I had a business up the street. And I just look at this and I'm like, I don't think the proponent, has had the support at the entrepreneurial level to headhunt a tenant. It's been vacant because no one's done any work. And I know these guys. I know they hired my buddy Harvey to do the entire building. It's fully occupied up there. Maybe there's a cost problem on the building, but how can we see into those books? So why should we have sympathy as a council about him not being able to afford his own building, right? They ran into problems with sprinklers. They ran into all kinds of problems. I will be sympathetic to somebody who's here asking for it, but from a land use perspective, no one's going to come in there and spend $80,000 undoing a residential makeover, trying to turn it back into something that's commercial to service the soon-to-be 500 extra human beings we're going to put here when Funday Key is done and when 99 King is done. So I think we do have to think a little more long-term about the strategic use of this. All the storefronts we have on streets right now are fully occupied. There's like 3 vacancies in the Uptown, maybe 4. Steeple View's coming, that's another 60, 70 people there, right? So it's just, to me, it's like, this is a lot of opportunity as a commercial space. We don't have anybody here telling us, oh yeah, we tried, we talked to 17 people and every one of them turned us down because they hate it or whatever. We can't see into that bucket either. So it's hard for me to have sympathy for a guy who came from Fredericton and bought the building, did a ton of work to it and has it fully occupied. We don't know what he's charging for rents. He could be making a song and be looking to make more, right? So, I mean, it's difficult here, but I still can't vote in favor of it.
Councillor Redwan, is this not your third time around?
And I'll
Okay, well,
just
hold
be
on for one
quick.
second. I have a
Yeah, go
question
ahead.
for Ava myself.
Sure.
Do you have any idea what the commercial rate of vacancy is? I mean, I'm getting all kinds of,
I unfortunately don't, Your Worship.
okay, just checking. Oh, back over to you, Councillor Redwan.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate, look, you gave me the whole time back too. That's nice. I don't need it all, but one thing that I do want to say is that when you're looking at commercial versus residential, which is essentially what this is, it is land use planning. And that's a lens I know that we need to look through, and having that commercial on the ground floor is what brings services to your neighborhoods. So that is essential. When it comes to talking about the BIA, for sure, they're out cleaning the streets for everybody. So, that's kind of part of helping the neighborhood, and I appreciate that, and that's kind of where that all stands. But having that commercial space is great, and having residential above it feeds all the businesses, which just helps the economy and helps everybody have work. So I think that I'm a no on this one. Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan, back to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. One just short advertisement to follow on something that Councillor Harris had mentioned. There is a new pet store around the corner from Dykeman's on Main Street.
Okay.
So there is that, along with all the hardware stores. I certainly understand what I've been hearing, and as I've said many times, around land use planning, just really more for the public than us. This isn't 100% one way or zero on the other. I certainly respect what's been said. I will move the recommendation to move things forward, though.
Thank you, and I got a seconder on it. And the city CAO here is just pulling up the commercial vacancy rates, 23% in the city of St. John. So just add that. Just adding that. Okay, so I've got a mover and a seconder. So Councillor Killen wasn't feeling well, so she's left. So I'll call the question on the question. All in favor? Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, opposed. The motion fails. Correct. So I've got opposed, I've got to that Councillor Harris, Councillor Radwan, Councillor Hickey, Councillor Ogden, and Councillor Norton. Okay, that's it. On to the next one. Ogden, yeah, Councillor Ogden and Councillor Norton. Are the 5 days.
Your Worship, I am here for the next public hearing, so on Teams.
Councillor Killen
Awesome.
didn't vote because the clerk said she left in the middle of the hearing, so she couldn't vote.
Yeah.
We do have Councillor Killen. She's on the virtual now.
It's way too hot in there. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Because she left during the public hearing.
Yeah.
She can be on there for all of the following public hearings, but she missed part of this public hearing. So for all of the other ones, she's good to go. All right. No, she can't leave while the public hearing, when I say I'm opening the public hearing, and if she leaves before I say I'm closing it, you can't go to the bathroom before I say those two. Yep. No, she wasn't on the technology. She was here when we opened the public hearing. And she left, and then after she left, I closed it. Okay. See.
At PAC, we need a positive resolution. I just wonder, that resolution failed.
Failed.
And I'm fine with that. Do we need
Oh, yes, we
a
probably do.
positive resolution that says it be denied?
Okay, so, City Clerk?
That would be, whoops.
It's over to you guys.
That would be preferable to have a clear motion saying, because your motion would have been to approve first
Correct.
reading.
Right.
And that failed. So now if the other side would put forward a motion to deny this application, it would be clear in the record.
Okay, so Councillor Harris is moving that. Councillor Radwan is seconding that motion. So I'll call that question. All in favor of that? Oh, yeah, oh, never mind. I have to wait till Councillor Stewart gets back. Won't matter. I got the 5, yeah. Yeah. Okay, all in favor? So I've got the 5 in favor,
And the
opposed,
nays?
And the nays are here, and I'm obviously Councillor Stewart. So that motion passes. Perfect. Next item, City Clerk. Oh, wait a minute. So do you have to, what do you have to read? Anything? Are we good?
No,
Okay,
because
no, okay,
the
right.
motion
Okay,
did not
we're good.
pass, so. yeah.
The industrial parks, I think it's 17.1 to the front of the agenda. I don't know if that's possible for the benefit of the attending public.
We've got, can we do that when we've got the things advertised for 6:30? We can? Can we, John?
Well, it will only take 5 minutes.
Okay. All right, so we'll go with 10.
It would benefit Chambers, I believe.
So do I need a motion to do that? or anything?
I would take a motion of council to move that, yes, to move that.
Okay,
forward to the
Councillor, yeah, so we've got the motion to do that. So we'll move up 10-3.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm sending this one over to, I'll send this one over to you first. I have to get to it first. Hang on. Three.
Good.
All right. Okay, City, I'm going to have Director McKeel introduce this one. No, hang on. Oh, no, we're going with 10-3. Yep. The city clerk's going to introduce this one.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. So you will recall that this item was introduced by the Commissioner of Planning at the July 8th meeting. So for this particular item, it's 10.3 on your agenda, and it's for a proposed municipal plan amendment for Spruce Lake Industrial Park expansion. And so I'm just going to read out, I do have a letter that's on your kit, but I would like to read out the content of it for the public. And so a public presentation was made on July 8th of a proposed amendment to the municipal development plan, which would redesignate on Schedule A of the municipal development plan and having an area of approximately 421 hectares from park and natural area, rural resource employment area, and stable area outside of the primary development area to employment area within the primary development area, and which would redesignate on Schedule B of the municipal plan, municipal development plan land, having an area of approximately 421 hectares from park and natural area, rural resource, heavy industrial, and rural residential outside of the primary development area, to heavy industrial within the primary development area, to include the site within the primary development area and the heavy industrial designation to allow for the expansion of the Spruce Lake Industrial Park. And so you'll see in your package that the required advertising has been completed, and we have attached the public notice to your records in your council kit, the application, and all letters that we've received with respect to this property. If council wishes, it may now choose to refer this matter to the Planning Advisory Committee for a report and a recommendation, and authorize the necessary advertising with a public hearing to be held on November 12th, 2024 in the Common Council chamber at 6:30, or council may choose not to proceed with the proposed amendment process and adopt a resolution to deny the application.
Okay, so I need a motion there to say, what? Oh, sorry, you're going to speak first.
Your Worship, thank you. I would like to ask the senior planner leading this file, Mark Reed, to come forward and provide an overview and some context in terms of some of the highlights of what we've heard to date, as well as some of the next steps relating to this file.
Thank you, Brent. Your Worship, through you to the council, we would like to thank the Laurenville community for their attendance at the public open house that we had in July. This is an important initiative for the city, and we wanted community input on the proposal. The application before you deals with an expansion of the Spruce Lake Industrial Park to create pad-ready sites for future development. We can appreciate at this time, some of the information is at a high level because we do not have, a detailed proposal for a specific industrial use or operation on the site. This is really the beginning of the process. The community has provided feedback on a number of issues and topics, such as a desire for an increased setback between the proposed industrial park expansion and the existing residential area, the prohibition for certain industrial uses, such as a metal shredder, how land uses are laid out within the park, and the use of laydown areas or other areas of light industrial development to create a buffer between the area of existing development along Laurenville Road and proposed potential heavy industrial or impactful developments. Future opportunities for participation in and feedback on future EIAs dealing with specific industrial uses, environmental concerns such as impacts on groundwater quality and wells, and infrastructure and community benefits. In light of these comments, the consultant, Dillon Consulting, is preparing a What We Heard report, and that will summarize the input received to date and how the plan will address that those concerns raised by the community. This engagement report will be posted on our Shape Your City website. The proponent is developing an integrated development and zoning framework for the site, and in addition to heavy industrial uses, will also include light and medium industrial uses, as well as office and other supporting complementary land uses for an industrial park. The overall application timeline has been extended by a month to have the application scheduled for the October 8th Planning Advisory Committee meeting. This provides for a public hearing at the November 12th meeting of Common Council. So this additional community opportunity for community and public input will be available to the public at both the Planning Advisory Committee meeting and the public hearing at Common Council. This input will help to inform both the Planning Advisory Committee's recommendation on the matter and Council's ultimate decision on the proposed development. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so you're not speaking on that? No. I'll just to summarize that the city will be collecting all of the information that's being sent to them. That's all going to Dillon. Dillon is collecting it as well, and they'll put together a path forward if it's appropriate and what to try to answer some of those questions for us. So we need those questions answered. You need those questions answered. That's the intent of this whole process. So this one now, I'll be looking for a motion to send it to, oh, sorry, I got Councillor Ogden here. Councillor Ogden, I'll go to you first.
Am I allowed to speak on
Yep,
this?
go ahead.
We all remember, because I went to school or played or with a lot of people here and coached and taught many of their children. We all remember Norm Ferguson in 1970 fighting Coucil Cove and the amount of land that was taken away, and people in Laurenville who'd been there 225 years, McGuire's, McCabbers, Wilsons, all the names. They felt very much abused by the system. And a lot of that land down there, when I go down to, we used to call it Splains Cove, is that the same as Black Beach, basically? That a lot of that land is sitting there idle now because there wasn't much thought to how much land they needed. And I often wonder, this is just one of the points I want to make sure we look at, can we take some of that land that was really abused and could we turn it back into more livable land? Because, many of the people, McCabbers, Wilsons, whatever, were all moved to another part of Laurenville or moved up to Fairville or whatever, the kids I grew up with. And I was wondering if we could go back to the province and maybe take some of that land and get it back, because that left a very bad feeling. And then along comes a dump, which was supposed to be there 2 years and was there 20 years. And then I've gotten a lot of, like everybody has, emails and messages and phone calls that, the potholes in Laurenville. There's one guy that swears at me every time I see him, and I went to school with him because of the potholes. And the other day I was up a ladder and he yelled at me about the potholes in Laurenville. And then we heard about the wall that fell down by the bridge and all that type of thing. I don't blame the people of Laurenville for not trusting government, province or city, from the past. and I'd like to see that rectified. I mean, after COVID, the economic order is changing. We have a North American free trade zone, and Chinese jobs are going to Mexico because they're closer, and the Americans want closer. We're going to benefit from that economic structure. We don't trust things made from away anymore after COVID. So we're probably going to see more of this. I don't want to see a metal shredder in Laurinville, which some people are saying, well, that's the answer for Uptown St. John. So I think maybe we should make sure that's written in there. The offsets, 30 feet. I keep hearing at the meeting I attended, I sat and listened quietly, 200 to 300 feet. And I listened to, we don't want an environment. Laurinville is a beautiful place. It's a little fishing village that was created by settlers, and all those families know each other well, and they love living there. And the fellow who was my best man is, I spent my middle school years down there. So I know that the people there don't trust us. We do need more industrial area. We are caught. And I don't blame people when they look at our industrial parks compared to, say, Moncton. They look like crap. And Halifax too, when you go over to Dartmouth. But we are working on that.
Councillor,
Are we debating this now? I thought that this was to take
No.
a motion to go to PAC or
No,
not.
but
And not spend over 3 minutes talking about something we're not.
well,
supposed to
Mr.
talk about.
McKenzie, I think the people should know the truth, that's all.
well, Councillor,
But are we all going to do this now?
councillors, no.
Oh, we all have the right to, Mr.
No, we
McKenzie.
don't.
Yes,
So
we do. We didn't do it the north end with the public housing.
This is a proposed municipal plan amendment, so you've, I guess what we can do, and I think we should.
Okay, I'll finish, but the people of Laurinville have a right to feel the way they are.
And we're going to provide that. I
Okay.
agree, I agree they
But-
do, but we need to seek the path, and we're not going to seek
But we
it.
didn't do it in the north end with the housing.
I don't know what you did in the north end with the housing years ago. Okay,
You're trying to cut me off, Mr. McKenzie.
yeah. Anyways, I want to call the meeting back to order. I want to call the meeting back to order. So what we want to do, Councillor Lowe, like, we're not to debate this, I need someone to move this.
I move the motion to the PAC on October the 8th.
Okay, I'll take it. Thank you. So I got a mover and a seconder on that. So on the question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. Okay. So tonight wasn't a public hearing for this. This is just for us to decide if we're going to move it on. I think if we're going to continue to explore it, then we need to get your feedback. I've said that to everyone, I think, that has emailed me. I've tried to answer all of them. The voice of the community is part of any path forward, and that's what we're looking for. Dylan needs to get all of your voices, they need to hear what your concerns are, et cetera, and then Dylan needs to figure out what a path forward is for us, and if there is a path forward. But they're the experts, they need to do that. We've asked them to do that. So that's what PAC will help us figure that out as well. So when you go to PAC, you'll have your notes, and they're going to ask for you to come forward, just like I did for Nancy, and then who will speak against it and who will speak for it. And then when you come back to here, I'll ask the same thing again. So you'll end up going through that process twice. So to make sure that everybody's been heard and to make sure that all of the angles have been looked at and everybody's had, because there's EIA concerns, there's lots of different concerns there, wetland concerns, there's all sorts of concerns. How can we, and then we need to know how can we put in regulations that will be helpful, but we need to get that feedback from Dylan. We need to get some recommendations from Dylan, and then for us to then try to move forward with it. Then we'll have some options. So that's the plan, folks. So I won't see you, but you'll be at Councillor Lowe, yes?
Yeah, these people should know that nothing can be done in Laurinville until PAC meets. PAC meets, they all come back. It's a different board. There's 7 members, Gary and myself, councillors, and there's 5 ordinary people. Then after that, recommendations goes back to council. So you get another kick at the cat. So nothing, I mean, that flyer you got said something was being done in September. Nothing can be done, anything, until October we come to PAC here. And then after PAC, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks and it goes to council. It's the same thing. You come back to council where we hear tonight.
It says with a public hearing on Tuesday, November the 12th. So it won't come back to council till November the 12th. So we would need to gather all that information. A decision would then be made. So we would have PAC's decision, and then we would make a decision. We'd have Dylan's guidance, and then we would decide what we're going to do with it. So are there opportunities for both of us? I hope so, and I think so, but let's at least explore it and figure out where we are on it. So that's that. It's going to go off to PAC in October, and then I'll see you if you're interested in coming back on November the 12th here in this council chambers, where I'll call you down to the mic. So I do appreciate you being here. I think the community has really has really come together to make sure that we hear their voice. And I'd like to say that we are hearing your voice. And I think that this council and the councils that I've sat on, we want to go forward with the voice of people, with the voice of the community. It's the only way to go forward. It's the only, and it's those days are gone that, you know, the councillor talked about, and we're glad that they're gone, but we need to create a balance. So, you know, we're looking to grow, and we're looking to grow your community as well, and there's things that can happen in your community. So, all right, so I'm going to move on to the next item, folks. Councillor Redwine, did you want to say a couple of words before
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the dates. Dates for PAC and dates for council is November 12th, and when is PAC? October 8th.
Yep. Yeah, you just read that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's why Joanna was feeling, she could feel, yeah. It's just too warm in here for, well, it's warm if you're pregnant.
I suppose. I was going to say.
Yeah. Oh. You two will be dead. You two will be dead tomorrow. No, she's good. She's on the screen. She looks fine. That's why.
Yeah, I'm okay. I didn't want to like faint in council and cause some drama tonight, so appreciate letting me jump on here.
Was it 9-1?
I had unanimous in favor.
You were, Councillor Killen, are you against that? Going to PC?
No, I'm for it.
Okay, going to PC?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, sounds good. All right, City Clerk, next item.
Thank you, Your Worship. So there's still two items in our public hearings. We left off at starting at item 9.2, and this is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment with PAC report and staff presentation for 3277 Westfield Road.
Director McKeel, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This evening's second public hearing is an application for a rezoning that was submitted by Janice K. Seeley and Seeley Lodge, Inc. for the property located at 3277 Westfield Road. The rezoning will establish an existing supportive facility as a permitted use. The application has been evaluated by staff and the Planning Advisory Committee. Included in your package is a recommendation to rezone the property. I'll now turn it over to Yeva Matson, planner, for the staff presentation.
Good evening, Your Worship, Council again. The applicant is requesting to rezone the existing supportive facility at 3277 Westfield Road from rural settlement to neighborhood community facility. The total number of beds has increased to 10, and it is necessary to rezone to an appropriate community zone just due to the scale. It tipped favor to a higher one. So 3277 Westfield Road is located in the, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I'm sorry, Martinan neighborhood? Martinan, you can tell I'm not a local. Martinan near the border with Grand Bay Westfield. The supportive facility has been in operation for over 2 decades, and it's licensed by the province. It meets all safety standards that are required of a supportive facility. And while most of the parking on the site will be for staff and visitors, the availability of nearby transit allows employees and visitors more options in getting to the subject site. This neighborhood is rural in nature, and it's overwhelmingly comprised of single-family homes with instances of commercial activity along Westfield Road. The subject site is designated rural settlement area in the municipal plan. Several historical rural communities, such as the Martinan neighborhood and subject site, are designated rural settlement area. These communities historically contain small-scale rural residential as well as commercial and community uses, which supported these neighborhoods. As a result, this rural settlement area designation does allow for small-scale commercial and community uses. The subject site is currently zoned rural settlement. The rural settlement zone accommodates unserviced residential development in the form of 1 and 2 unit dwellings, as well as supportive housing and minor supportive facilities. So while the zone does permit the use of supportive facility, which is what this business would be considered, the use is limited to smaller scale with a maximum of 9 residents, and it has kind of tipped that scale to 10. So they would need to be rezoned to neighborhood community facility just to align that existing use with appropriate zoning. Letters were sent to landowners within 100 meters of the subject property on July 2nd, and public notice was posted on July 24th. We have had no responses. And PHC and staff are in alignment and recommend rezoning from rural settlement to neighborhood community facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. Okay, now I will open the public hearing and I'll ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the proposal for 3277 Westfield Road. I'll ask again if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the proposal for 3277 Westfield Road. And I'll ask for the third time if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the proposal for 3277 Westfield Road. Seeing no one, I'll ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak in support of the application for 3277 Westfield Road. Oh, okay, if you want to. Well, you look, if you just want to come down and we'll take your name, and then if any of my team had a question for you, is that all right? Okay. Okay, I'll get you to give us your name.
My name is Jan Seeley.
Jan Seeley, and you're the owner of 3277
Yes.
Westfield Road. Okay, perfect. We just want to log you in on the minutes that you appeared tonight for us as
Okay.
well. Does anyone have a question for Jan? Here we go, Councillor Sullivan. Oh, sorry, Councillor Harris has one. I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I actually just lived up the street there until recently up at 6 Rideau Street. Are you guys planning to do any sort of expansion on the site?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, nothing at all. We had looked at a grant at one time after COVID when they wouldn't let people visit. We looked at a grant for, to have the seniors be able to be with their families. And anyway, that's what kind of triggered this whole thing.
And the only other question, I think it's great, the only other question I had was, I have seen, I'm just wondering about some of the needs of the residents that are there. I know it's 10 beds now, I understand, or you're moving
Well,
to that.
it's 12 beds, and
Okay.
I clarified that with Mr. Llewellyn after the PAC, because I watched it online.
Yep.
And he sent me an email back that would be rectified, so I was nervous that it said 10, and I wanted to make sure you knew it was 12.
Yeah, is there residents from that facility who need to use the number 12, like the bus that goes by?
We have, like the city bus, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I was gonna
we've
say, I've
had-
seen
We've had
recently
a
some-
resident for like a very, very long time, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's something I plan to bring up with Transit Commission, because I think
Yeah.
there might be a need for a little bit of a bus shelter there
Yeah.
now that there is a CFN, a
We
community
had-
facility, so.
And we had hoped, my husband was the meat manager at the co-op since it opened, that's where we met 40-some years ago. It's his birthday today and our anniversary soon. Yeah.
Congratulations, it's my birthday too, my friend.
He's
Yeah.
65 today, so, yeah.
Amazing.
and,
I'm not telling my age, but it is my birthday.
And it's also Monday, this is Special Care Home Week in the province, so I just wanted to mention that because it is a special care, so.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, you guys have done a great job with the property so far, and just
Thank you.
love to see it.
He
Thank
mows
you
the
so much.
lawns.
I see you out there driving around.
Yeah, yeah.
Councillor Sullivan?
Wanted to check in that you're okay with the recommendation in the report.
Yes, yes,
Good.
I am.
Councillor Hickey?
Thanks, Your Worship. It's not really about the conversation tonight, but more of a thanks to Jan. For those that don't know, Jan is the president of the Special Care Homes Association of New Brunswick.
Yes.
And has been
yeah.
a tremendous advocate for special care homes across the province. We need more of them. We need to support them. Applications like this do so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Jan, for being here.
Thank you.
Tonight. Appreciate it. Okay, that's it for
can
you.
sit
I'm
down.
going to ask twice more. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application? No, I'll have to ask for the third time. If there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application at 3277 Westfield Road? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Team, do you have any questions for Ava? Move first reading, take a second. Deputy seconder on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Move second reading. Councillor Stewart on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Nope, I think that's it. Just the two. Yeah, we're good. Yeah. Sorry for keeping you here so long, but I'm going to be here longer than you, my friend. Good night. Next item, City Clerk.
Next is another public hearing, item 9.3 on your agenda, and it's a proposed zoning bylaw amendment with PAC report and staff presentation for property at 949 Grandview Avenue.
Director McKeel, over to you again.
Thank you, Your Worship. This evening's final public hearing is for a rezoning that was submitted by 3D Property Management, Inc. for a portion of the property located at 1670 Hickey Road. The rezoning is to permit the development of an apartment building. The application has been evaluated by staff and the Planning Advisory Committee. Included in your package is a recommendation to rezone the property. I'll now turn it over to Yeva Matson, planner, for the staff presentation on this file.
Again, evening, Your Worship and Council.
Show tonight.
So this is for 949 Grandview Avenue, and it's a rezoning application for a portion of the site. The applicant is applying to rezone it from 2-unit residential to mid-rise residential to allow for a approximate 51-unit residential development. In 1972, the eastern half of the site was rezoned to a 3-story multiple residential was the former zone to support a multi-unit development, which was unfortunately never developed. The second half of the site, which remained R2, was always meant to be a single-family home and then the apartment, as they didn't need all the land. And please note that the site plan shown is kind of still conceptual, as there's further site refinement needed. The development would be for a 3-story apartment building, common typology found across the city with associated parking, access, and landscaping. Subject site is located on the east side of St. John along Grandview Avenue and just off of Ian Street, which is an unfinished cul-de-sac, and it sits directly across the street from the New Brunswick Community College. The immediate neighborhood is a mix of low-density residential, but the wider area does contain larger number of industrial uses and higher-density residential. So this is an image of the site. It is currently vacant, and this is the portion of the site that would be rezoned between about that telephone pole and the bus stop. And then this is showing the larger frontage of the site all the way down Grandview. As said, that portion just before the bus stop would be rezoned. The rest is already RM. And then this is a picture of the site from that unfinished cul-de-sac on Ian Street. And to develop the proposed site, the proponent would be required by Building and Fire to finish that cul-de-sac to city standard. One final view, just looking down Ian Street. There would be an access to Ian Street, connecting it through to the property in the Grandview. This is part of a requirement for Building and Fire. So the site is designated as stable residential in the municipal plan. The proposal conforms to the policies established within the municipal plan, which supports the diversification of housing typologies within established neighborhoods. And policy HS4 also encourages the provision of student housing in close proximity to educational institution and major transit routes. And while the apartment building's not being identified for purely student housing, it's important to acknowledge the benefit of supporting the development of diverse housing options within proximity to our post-secondary institutions. So as said, in 1972, it was thought the multi-unit would be contained to half the site, so they'd left the other half as a low density. The proposed rezoning would just establish the entire property as RM, thus enabling the development of the entire site for the multi-unit development. And while the immediate neighborhood is largely comprised of R1 and R2 properties, the RM zone is located within the broader area. Along Grandview Avenue, there's some proximity to Champlain Heights and the school, and within the Dunnett Drive development just up the road. The proposed rezoning of the remaining portion of the site to RM can be viewed as compatible with the surrounding development pattern, which has supported the use of RM along Grandview Avenue and in proximity to education and employment nodes, and the proposed development does align with the RM zone standards. Staff are recommending 3 Section 59 conditions be attached to this site. The first one's the general kind of condition about detailed site and elevation plans. The second would require a dedicated landscaping plan to be submitted with all permits applications. And this would include more commercial-style landscaping across the Grandview frontage of the site and landscaping or alternative screening between the site and abutting residential properties, and some wording about tree retention being encouraged. And then the final requirement for a Section 59 was requested by our infrastructure team. As the site plan is conceptual and refinement could see addition of units, it is requested that if the unit count increased by about 10% or more, that the proponent would submit new sheets, flow sheets, so that St. John Water and Infrastructure could ensure adequate servicing. So letters were sent to landowners within 100 meters of the subject property on July 2nd. Public notice was posted July 28th. We did receive 2 letters in opposition. But PAC and staff are in alignment and recommend approval of the rezoning of that portion of site at 949 Grandview Avenue from 2-unit residential to mid-rise, subject to those 3 Section 59 conditions. During third reading, Council would need to assent for a city developer agreement to finish the Ian Street cul-de-sac as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll open the public hearing and I'll ask if there's anyone present tonight who would like to speak against the application for 949 Grandview Avenue, which will rezone from 2-unit residential to mid-rise residential, my favorite ones. I'll ask again if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application for 949 Grandview Avenue. And I'll ask for the third time if there's anyone here who would like to speak against the application for 949 Grandview Avenue. Seeing no one, I'll ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of 949 Grandview Avenue. Come on down. Give us your name. Right on.
Thank you very much. My name is Matt Doherty. I'm the owner of 3D Property Management. We're the applicants here. And I am in agreement with the PAC and the staff recommendations in this situation.
Excellent. Team, does anyone have any questions for Matt? Let's see who's up first here. Councillor Hickey, over to you.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Matt, is this development new for you guys?
Yes.
Because I know you're normally property managers. This is property development. This is a new, or is this your first development of this kind?
This size, yes. We are in the process of developing an 8-unit building over west, which has wound its way through the depths of City Hall, and we're looking at breaking ground when we get some finalized financials and stuff.
Okay, good. Hopefully own property nearby, because we'd like to see a few more of these. I know, hopefully NVCC is all over this, because I know they've been after residential of this kind, and in big numbers for their to service their campus. So hopefully that's future development down the road, but we're definitely in favor of this one.
I don't think I need to comment about that. However, I will say that from my own personal strategic development, I want to get more into developing. We do have the property management. We do a lot of third property managing, but I want to build more buildings.
Sounds good. Councillor Radbon, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming, Mr. Doherty. Appreciate it. I'm wondering if you were to build this, if there would be any plans to have any trees on the western side of the property, because of course it butts right up against R2, R1.
Yeah, that is my understanding, part of the Section 59 conditions, where we do have landscaping and or some sort of barrier between the west side of the property and the Ian Street sort of section. So yeah, I would want some trees there or something blocking that from them.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I think that's great. I'm definitely all for mixed neighborhoods, having some apartments and some houses. This would be absolutely wonderful for MBCC, of course. Just wondering if it is approved, when do you plan to start and when do you plan to finish the development?
A lot of stars have to align, but realistically, I would like to start building it next spring and have it occupied late fall type of idea. A lot of stars have to come together to make that happen. This is step number one.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Harris?
Just making sure that Matt, that we do have an affordable housing grant program, and that is available through for-profit developers as well. So in case you're considering, you're looking at getting all the funding in line, couple of different buckets of funding now available at CMHC, provincial level, and here. Yes, it does require some buy-in to the affordable housing component, but I know that it can, I'm looking at it right now myself, going through it at the different levels, and it can make a lot of sense. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know that the city recently, within the last 2 months, have opened some of that up, so I am aware of that. I've already looked into the provincial one. We're probably going to have between 6 and 8 affordable units in there already. Housing is important to everyone. Affordability is also important. Absolutely, I get it. So it's part of the mixture of what goes into a building.
Sounds good. Okay, we don't have any more questions there for you, Matt, but thanks for being here tonight. Always great to see the
Thank you.
proponent here. So I'll ask again if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application for 949 Grandview Avenue. And I'll ask for the third time if there's anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application for 949 Grandview Avenue. Okay, seeing no one, what I will do is I'll close the public hearing and I'll ask the team if you have any questions for staff. Councillor Radwan, over to you for a staff question.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick process question. In one of the letters, somebody mentioned that they didn't get a letter. So just wondering if you can kind of speak about how the process works. How do we make sure that everybody's getting notice?
Through your worship to Councillor. So it is within 100 meters of the property boundary, which can sometimes make an odd shape just because of the shape of the property. So sometimes people on one street, half the residents will get it, and then it'll kind of curve up and catch maybe 2 people on another street. So it is 100 meters through the Community Planning Act sets that. So we have tools on GIS to measure that.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, that's it. Thank you. Okay, so City Clerk, over to you for the motions we'll require.
This one's simple. It's 2 motions: approve first reading by title and approve second reading by title.
Approve first reading by title. Councillor Hickey and the Deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Approve second reading by title. Councillor Sullivan and Stewart on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Excellent. Thank you, City Clerk. On to the next one's consideration of bylaws.
What
Next
we skipped earlier,
hang on.
item 6, members' comments.
yeah, we
So
gotta
we should
go
go
back
back
to
to that.
Members' comments. I think we've all commented enough tonight, but let's try it anyway. Anybody interested in making a few comments? Oh, Councillor Radwan and Hickey. Councillor Radwan, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, happy birthday, Mayor Reardon.
Thank you.
I hope you have a good night. Hopefully we get out early enough. I did want to mention the Arts Board grants are still open for people to apply by September 26th at 4 o'clock. And the Moonlight Bazaar is coming on August the 24th from 4:30 till 12:30. For anybody that's looking for accessible parking, there should be a flat area close to St. John High available for accessible parking. And a congratulations to the St. John Sea Eagles soccer team, which is made up of a bunch of newcomer residents and from all over the world who's not really played on teams before. They're going to the finals for their tournament and they hope to do provincials next year. And I just wanted to say special thanks to Ricardas and Orlando Linderos, who's actually a city staff member from General Council who's coached this team. And we have lots of talent in our house as well. So, and just a shout out to Mr. Steve McDonald from Forward House, who's doing some sober living in the community. He's housing some gentlemen right now and is getting ready to house some females as well in September.
Thank you. Councillor Hickey.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. I want to extend our condolences to the family of Dr. Terry Chopin. Dr. Chopin distinguished himself as the Coucil Honorable de France, earning numerous prestigious honors, including the Knight of the Ordre National du Mérite, the Officer in the Ordre de Palme Académique, and the Knight in the Ordre du Mérite Maritime. His unwavering dedication to fostering Francophone culture and heritage in our region during his time as president of the Francophonie du Sud-Ouest de Nouveau-Brunswick was nothing short of exemplary. The City of St. John owes a great debt of gratitude to Dr. Chopin for his invaluable contributions to the city's Francophone community. Under his leadership, the Francophonie du Sud-Ouest de Nouveau-Brunswick thrived, and the city's growth department was privileged to support their initiatives. Additionally, Dr. Chopin's tenure as a professor in biology at UNB St. John left a significant mark on both students and colleagues. In this time of mourning, our thoughts are with Dr. Chopin's family, friends, and colleagues. Thanks very much.
Thank you, councillors. I will echo that as well. He was an amazing person, very, very enthusiastic all the time. Great guy. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Your Worship. Early, seems like forever ago, but we were talking about the new recreation facility and what a good partner the St. John Exhibition Association is with that facility. And we should mention that the St. John Exhibition is coming up for this year, August 27th to the 31st. So as much as they've been great partners and everything else, the reason they exist, visit the exhibition. I'll be there for sure. And the second piece is the RKYC in Milledgeville just celebrated their 60th year of having junior sailing and learn to sail with our annual regatta. And Morgan Hazlitt, who was the only female in the fleet, was the winner of the regatta. So, and Morgan is the daughter of two of our employees who work for the police and PSSC. So congratulations to Morgan, and we continue to work with sailing to have us in the 2029 Canada Games. So that's all part and parcel. So good for sailing in the province. Go to the X.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't see anyone else. I will also add that, oh, sorry, Councillor Norton, I didn't see your light on there.
I think I turned it off, Your Worship,
Okay.
and I certainly want you to have the anchor there. Sometimes one of our roles as councillors is to think strategically. So I strategically thought it would be good to get a T-shirt for the Chair of Finance from St. John West days. There you go. You might want to show that to everybody because I think we are the only ward that does have its own T-shirt. So that's the 2024 edition, and thank you, absolutely. So any West Siders out there, it does make West is best, and I know everybody from Hugh McGill to Councillor Stewart and so many people made it happen again, from Family Day to bingo. In fact, my neighbor came home as excited as he ever was for winning $50 West Side dollars on the West Side, which I told him had to be spent on West Side merchandise. So he was headed right to the Moosehead Small Batch Brewery. So it was a great week, and although they say many hands make light work, I know it was a lot of heavy lifting from chairs with Councillor Lowe and all the councillors were there. So and Her Worship bringing greetings on behalf of the city. So thank you to all that were able to attend, and all the volunteers that made it possible, and all the citizens that came out to make it very, very special. So West Side Days was a great success, and we look forward to another blockbuster next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I will just say briefly, I don't know if people know A1 Upholstery. Daryl Johnson got sick and died. So to his family, I want to send our condolences. It's a loss to the city. He did a lot of recovering for me over the years. And like I said, to his family, we want to send our condolences because it is a big loss. It's great to have that furniture recycled. The only other thing I'll mention, if you want to see what I've been up to, you're going to have to check my Facebook page. I've got help adding things onto that now, so it's all good. And I will mention that the Fundy Fringe Festival starts tonight, August 19 to 24, and I love that. I love that event because you just run from one thing to the other. They're all short, little, small, usually an hour or whatever, and they're great. So consider that. All right, next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next, we're back to bylaws, item 10.1, and it's Milledgeville Avenue Boat Ramp Rehabilitation Project, Traffic Bylaw Amendment, third reading.
Okie dokie. I'll take, okay, sounds good. Commissioner Hugenholtz, I don't think we're going to need your services tonight. All right, City Clerk, over to you for the motions. What do we need here?
So for this, two motions only. Approve the reading by entirety and then by title.
Okay, approve reading by entirety. Oh, yeah, sorry, I've got that moved and seconded.
Okay. So a bylaw of the City of St. John entitled a bylaw respecting the traffic on streets in the City of St. John and amendments thereto enacted on the 7th day of October 2019 is hereby amended as follows. Schedule B, no parking anytime, is amended by adding the following words to the following headings: street, Millage Ave, side, both, limits from civic number 1041 to end, north end of Millage Ave.
Okay, I need a motion to approve reading by title. Councillor Sullivan and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
And the title of this one is a bylaw to amend a bylaw respecting the traffic on streets in the City of St. John, bylaw number MV 10.1 and amendments thereto.
Next item.
Next, we have item 10.2, and this is a traffic bylaw amendment. So it's entitled Bylaw Respecting the Traffic on Streets in the City of St. John Amendment
Third
for
reading on this
Sydney Street, and it's third reading.
Okay. Do you want a presentation? You're going to move it? Councillor Stewart and Councillor Sullivan are approving reading by entirety on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
My apology, Your Worship, this one's a little bit lengthier.
Okay.
But I can get through pretty quickly. A bylaw of the City of St. John entitled a bylaw respecting traffic on streets in the City of St. John, bylaw MV 10 and amendments thereto enacted on the 7th day of October 2019 is amended as follows. Schedule 1A, parking for specified times, 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., is amended by deleting the following words into the following headings: street, Sydney Street, both sides, limits Duke Street to Queen Square, time limit 2 hours. Sydney Street, both sides, limits St. Andrews Street to Broadview Avenue, 2 hours. Number 2, Schedule A1, parking for specified times 0800 to 1700 is amended by adding the following words under the following headings: Sydney Street, west side, limits Duke Street to Broad Street, time limit 2 hours. Sydney Street, both sides, Broad Street to Broadview, 2 hours. Number 3, Schedule B, no parking anytime is amended by adding the following words under the following headings: street, Sydney, east side, limits Duke Street to Broad Street. 4, Schedule G, alternate side parking is amended by deleting the following words under the following headings: Sydney Street, Princess Street to Broadview Avenue. Number 5, Schedule G, alternate side parking is amended by adding the following words under the following headings: street, Sydney, Princess Street to Duke Street, Sydney Street, Broad Street to Broadview Avenue. Number 6, Schedule N, streets for residential zone parking permits is amended by deleting the following words under the following headings: Zone E, street, Sydney Street, both sides, limit Duke Street to Broadview Avenue. Number 7, Schedule N, streets for residential zone parking permits is amended by adding the following words under the following headings: Zone E, street, Sydney Street, west side, limit Duke Street to Broad Street. Sydney Street, both sides, limits Broad Street to Broadview Avenue. And that's it.
Okay, I need a motion to approve reading by title. Councillor Hickey and the deputy on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, and that's it for that one.
Okay.
And,
Next item.
and the title of that one.
That
my
title, yeah, we
apology.
just-
It's a bylaw to amend a bylaw respecting the traffic on streets in the City of St. John, bylaw number MV 10.1 and amendments thereto. And so we've already done 10.3, and so for 10.4, it's a similar item. It's a proposed municipal plan amendment letter with respect to Nason Roads / Martha Avenue.
Okay, so for this one, I'm sending that over to Ava, correct?
Nope.
No.
Oh, I
10.4?
would read that one.
The what? Oh,
10.4.
sorry, John.
Yep.
Oh, 10.4, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, okay. You're just reading that in there, right?
And so in this case, Your Worship, I would read the letter into the public record and council would vote.
Right.
And so this is the proposed municipal plan amendment, Nason Road, Martha Avenue. And as council will recall, a public presentation was made on July 8th of a proposed amendment to the municipal development plan, which would redesignate on Schedule A of the municipal development plan land having an area of approximately 6.78 hectares located on Nason Road from park and natural area to stable area, and redesignate on Schedule B of the municipal plan land having an area of approximately 6.78 hectares located on Nason Road from park and natural area to stable residential to permit a multi-unit residential development. The required advertising has been completed, and attached you'll find a copy of the public notice and the applications. No letters of opposition or support were received. If council wishes, it may now choose to refer this matter to the Planning Advisory Committee for report and recommendation and authorize the necessary advertising with a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, October 1, 2024 in the chamber at 6:30, or not to proceed with this amendment process and adopt a resolution to deny the application.
I'll take a motion to refer to the PAC. I would recommend. The Deputy and Councillor Radwan on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Next item, City Clerk.
And next we have submissions from council members, and the first one, just one moment, my mic was off. So the next item is 11.1, and it's a submission by Councillor Radwan, a notice of motion with respect to a letter to Minister Jill Green. This was deferred from the meeting of July 22nd, and so it's appropriate for the council to debate this.
Okay, Councillor, so over to you for your motion, and then I guess if you get a seconder, we'll go to.
Okay, so Mayor, I don't know if I'm able to actually amend this because Caricos gave me some information today that the province actually will not pay for supervision for a site that they didn't set up. So if I can, I'd like to amend it to direct Mayor to send a letter off to the government of New Brunswick copying Minister Jill Green to request 24/7 supervision of the site at 124 Waterloo, otherwise known as the CCAN site. This supervision could mean funding for Fresh Start services to allow them to be on site for 24/7 outreach supervision of the site.
Okay, so I guess what I would say to that is I would probably refer it to the CAO for a staff report to come back, because I have written to Minister Austin, and I'm just setting up a meeting with him, myself, the CAO, and the police chief. And then Caricos of city staff has brought forward some information, like you said, so it would be nice to get that information brought forward in a report that then we can then present at council. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that actually, and I think that because we don't have a building permit yet for the Merit House, that this is still valid. I checked this morning, so.
So do you want to refer your motion over and we'll get a seconder on that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
And referring, yes, you're going to second that referral? Okay, well, I need a second.
Before there's any vote on it. I got to declare a conflict.
Okay. Okay, so you're going to speak to declare a conflict?
Yeah,
Okay.
with the adjustment in the motion, I've got a conflict of interest.
Okay. All right, so I'll take a seconder on refer to the city, seconder, the deputy. All right, on the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Excellent. So we'll get a report back on that. That's
Great,
perfect.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is item 11.2. And this is a submission by Councillor Radwan, a notice of motion with respect to Community Safety Services Unit. And again, this was deferred from the previous meeting of July 22nd.
Okay, Councillor Radwan, back to you.
So, Mayor, the motion is that the CAO be directed to have staff get a budget estimate together for Community Safety Services Unit and propose timeline informing one and report back to council in 6 weeks. And can I just speak to it in general?
Yeah, but does the councillor need to get a seconder on it to
Oh.
speak, or should, yeah? Okay.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I should get Councillor Hickey back in here. Oh, no, does he have a
Oh, yeah.
conflict on both of these?
No, I shouldn't, no.
Okay, before we go. Let me get Councillor Hickey back here. Okay, so Councillor Radwan's just read her motion. We're looking for a seconder on that motion. I will say in the meantime that just sitting on the police commission, that there are 4 extra police officers that are on foot patrol that are provided through the province, and they've asked for an increase in it. They're looking to put together a quick response team as well. So, so do I have a seconder on that motion? Okay, then that motion fails. All right. City Clerk, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item is 11.3. It's a submission by Councillor Norton. It's a notice of motion, and it's with respect to City of St. John employees and elected officials' policy on political activity.
Okay, so tonight, Councillor, all you're going to do is read your motion or whatever in, and then we do the 2 weeks on it.
Thank you, Your Worship. The proposed motion is that the CAO be directed to draft a policy for council's consideration that outlines the expectations and restrictions on political activities for city employees and elected officials to prevent conflicts of interest.
Okay, that's it, I think. City Clerk, correct? Okay. Just to note that Councillor Killen also declared a conflict on that one. Councillor Hickey declared a conflict on that one as well. Okay, Councillor. Next item, City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next item would be 12.1 on your agenda. And this is a submission from the CAO's office on an update on select catalytic projects and advocacy.
Okay, sorry, CA, over to you. I'm just
Okay.
trying to find 12.2 in my kit here. There we go.
Of course, thank you, Your Worship. Good evening. To provide an update in terms of catalytic projects, we have a number of updates in progress being made on our catalytic projects, which I think is exciting. I'll update on our advocacy project as well as our 4 infrastructure projects. Affordable housing, the team continues to advance on council's priority of affordable housing. The city's extended the deadline for the affordable housing grant by 1 week. And so that will close this Thursday on August 22nd. This grant provides top-up of $8,000 to $10,000 per affordable housing unit created. The Affordable Housing Soft Cost Grant Program remains open for applications. This grant program provides up to $25,000 in pre-construction funding to support new affordable housing projects by nonprofit organizations. The city continues to support the Rapid Housing Initiative known as the Bear Green Residence by Kaleidoscope Social Impact to bring 39 affordable housing units to Broadview Street. An amended Rapid Housing Initiative contribution agreement has been executed with Kaleidoscope Social Impact, and the project is expected to restart this month. As it relates to the Housing Accelerator Fund program, a lot of progress there as well. The funding agreement we have requires the city to permit 1,124 units over the next 3 years. Building permits we have so far are 356, so we're hitting 32% of our overall target at this time, with less than a year in. For the targets in the completion of the subcategories, great progress is being made in terms of the affordable housing. We need to have a minimum of about 101 units, and we're now at 47 affordable units, so meeting about 47% of our 3-year target. In terms of the missing middle, our target is 164. We now have 92 missing middle building permits, so we're meeting 56% of our 3-year target on that. And for the residential multi-unit apartment style category, we're to have 805 units, and right now we're at 238, so we're meeting 30% of our 3-year target. The city's also issued 42 building permits for other building forms, including single detached homes and mobile homes. An additional 42 also counts towards the overall total of the 1,124 that we're seeking. We also have 7 out of the 8 Housing Accelerator Fund initiatives underway, so the RFPs have been awarded for the governance reform and zoning bylaw reform. An RFP is being issued, actually reissued this week as it relates to schematic design catalog. And the RFP is being awarded to conduct the North End Combined Sewer Separation Strategy as part of the North End Neighborhood Secondary Plan Initiative. An RFP is also being prepared for the North End Secondary Plan Initiative, and that has been issued and is planned to be awarded this month. So switching to catalytic projects, provide an update in terms of the innovative Central Peninsula Learning Commons, so the school in the South End. The province, Anglophone South School District, and the city are continuing planning work on the new South End School that will be located adjacent to Rainbow Park, and the new North End School that will be located on Rope Walk Road adjacent to the YMCA. Demolition for both the North End School and South End School are active. North End is much more visible with demolition occurring, and South End is a bit more strategic now in terms of the initial phases before they get into the full demolition. On August 8th, the city hosted a public engagement session with participation from the province at the St. John the Baptist School related to the Central Peninsula School. The session was primarily to inform the public and invite them on feedback as it relates to traffic around the school, as well as on-street parking changes to the relating to the new Central Peninsula School and the community hub. And the city's actively working now with the school district and is committed to supporting the school district to ensure that we have the adequate parking for their staff within walking distance of the school. So those discussions continue. The proposed improvements at Rainbow Park will include a renewed community garden has been shared publicly, a dog park, green space, new trees, shade features, as well as the reestablishment of the Turner Brewer Memorial that will be placed within the heart of the Rainbow Park near the proposed new toddler playground. The park's also expected to see a renewed and reoriented basketball court with new fencing to permit shared use of the park during school hours while ensuring children stay safe. The public is invited to share their feedback on the proposed changes, which are live now on the city's Shape Your City webpage. There's further opportunity for public input as well at PAC, at the Planning Advisory Committee, which is to be held here tomorrow, August 20th in council chambers. And there'll be another opportunity as well for the public to provide input to that. That's scheduled to hold first and second reading for the South End School on September 3rd here in the council chambers. And with respect to industrial parks, we continue to work towards setting up the wholly owned nonprofit entity, industrial parks, for the purpose of managing the municipal lands and providing land solutions for industrial clients to facilitate development. This will be a significant step forward in terms of moving closer to achieving council's catalytic priority. The new entity, once operational, will be able to address development needs and land solutions quickly and efficiently. And to that end, later this evening, council's planning to take a number of steps to allow for the new corporation to assume the ownership of lands within the 3 established industrial parks, an essential step for the new corporate entity to deliver on expectations. We also will begin the recruitment process for a general manager of the St. John Industrial Parks. Also, with respect to the barge terminal, we need to transfer the lease of that to the new entity. And as it relates to the multiplex, that was covered, I think, in depth this evening. I'll not touch on that further, other than to say I think the progress is exciting, and the funding from the province and the federal governments, as was discussed earlier on, is really what's essential now to make this project a reality. And we'll be making our submission to that federal fund in early September. Lastly, in terms of Fundy Key, with respect to the redevelopment of Fundy Key, on the private development, construction of the first building continues. Concrete pours have been ongoing, and occupancy is scheduled for Q1 of 2026. As it relates to Idoli Makahamik and the public space, I'm going to ask our Commissioner of Public Utilities to come forward and provide an overview in terms of what we have, and also a bit of a look ahead in terms of Harbor Passage and what we can expect as it relates to Harbor Passage sections opening.
Thank you, CEO McGovern. I'll just provide a brief update here. As everybody knows, the last 20% seems to take about 80% of the effort, but we are at the last 20%. And just quickly, I'll walk you through just a couple components. So the fountain is fully operational. We'll be working through some deficiencies as to where the water is falling, but this is just a nice picture of how it can look at night. The stage as well is there'll be some enhancements to that coming. There's still some monitors to come to the side of the building, and some additional components for lighting to be able to control the lights, and some of the sound equipment. The tidal steps are also complete. Here's a picture of them during the daytime, and actually at the bottom of this you can see how the tide has already brought in quite a bit of rock covering. There's actually a layer of tidal steps below this rock already flooded in. The boardwalk patios are in interim occupancy, with full occupancy expected this week. And this is just another view of the alley with the placement of the Loyalist rock. Also, our partners at the port have also completed their extension of Harbor Passage. So you see how popular Harbor Passage is. Even other people want to join in on the fun. So they've built their own extension for Harbor Passage along Long Wharf out to a new breakwater. And just to highlight a couple of the sections that will be opening, the first section, due to have the fence removed later this week, actually is this first section along Market Slip to a place called the Prow. You might see it in the distance. It looks like a little ramp, and from a distance it looks like pool noodles standing up, but they're not. They do light up, but that's just in my mind the way they look. But that section is due to have the contractor arrive to move the fence this week. The remaining section around the Fundy Key is due to be complete in October. The only caveat we have here is also that, as CEO McGovern alluded to, the construction of the first building on the Fundy Key will have an impact as they start to put up structural steel. We will have to close down that section while the structural steel is being erected. And that's your update.
Thank you, Commissioner. I walk that thing almost every day, and it's fantastic. All right. Does anyone have any questions on the update? Councillor Ogden, you have a question on the update?
Brent, you mentioned the north end streets. Will the north end streets have to be dug up? I mean, Old North End is much smaller than Central Peninsula, but it's got so much potential for growth. Will it have to be dug up and we wait for years for the streets? Because I think we could get housing in there right away, and what I'm fearful is that we have to dig up all the streets like we've done for years in the peninsula, with sewage and concrete sidewalks and all that stuff.
So that ties back to the combined sewer separate. We need to undertake that strategy, which we're getting underway, to really identify, when there's intensification and new builds happening, how we can strategically bring about solutions as it relates to the underground wastewater system, so that we can actually move forward with the builds. And we've been creative in the Central Peninsula. I'm sure we can do the same in the North End.
The old wooden, like one south and south end, north end's newer.
North End's a little newer, but I'm just wondering, will we have to dig down, take out really bad piping and be forever digging up streets in the north end, which will stop growth?
So a lot of it will have to be done in time. And so that's why we're doing the combined sewer separation strategy. That's a big driver in terms of not having dry weather sewer overflows into the environment.
Because Main Street and Adelaide Street are concrete sidewalk and everything. And then it's much smaller area in between. And just wondering, you know, like, do we have to dig up every street in the north end?
I can't say every street. We'd have to look at it street by street. Some streets have been renewed.
Yes.
I know, and we've had full street reconstructions done.
Right.
So it really depends upon the block of the street that you're looking at.
All right. So you don't see it impending development like in the old Forum property, all the Huggard properties and all that, because there's people now have purchased those properties, and I'd like to see as fast as possible housing it in there.
I would say to any developer that, you know, they shouldn't allow infrastructure to encumber them.
Okay.
If they're interested, come forward and have the discussion with us. We'd be happy to have the discussion.
So grab the bullet right now and just go with it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hickey, question on the update?
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. Brent, specific to your update on the schools, has there been provincial conversation about what's going to happen to the existing infrastructure?
I couldn't speak on that in terms of any decisions made. I think they're looking at student numbers in terms of, you know, what does that mean for schools overall? You know, the new schools are being built to certain numbers, but we're experiencing population growth as well, so they need to factor that in.
Okay, thank you. And maybe to you, maybe to Ian, question, can you follow up on the full occupancy comment, Ian? Like, we're going to be back to full operation. What should have been there, we're getting rid of our wooden picnic tables that aren't food safe, and we're back. Is that the full occupancy comment?
Through your worship of the council, no, the full occupancy basically means that we wouldn't have to have fire watch, and we'd be able to operate the roof. But there still are options for alternative furniture and possibly other ways to get occupancy back up to where it was beforehand.
So the wooden picnic tables are still better than fire-rated furniture?
According to the authority.
According to the authority, okay.
Is what I'll say.
Okay.
Subjective.
It is certainly subjective.
Second
question on it. There's some drainage challenges at Atoli Maccomick. Is that work going to be covered and done at some point?
Yes, those are all part of the deficiency list. Yep.
I'll also just add, the space is incredible. My office overlooks it, and I've never seen a moment, even in the midst of a rainstorm, where there isn't at least 20 people using it, using the splash pads, using all of the great aspects of it. So
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it.
It's constantly busy. It's fantastic. Councillor Lowe?
Yeah, and along with what Brent said, the zoning for St. John the Baptist King Edward's tomorrow night at PAC. So first and second reading, hopefully, and third reading, hopefully then the buildings will come down.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Councillor, for letting us know. Councillor Redwan?
Thank you, Mayor. On the affordable housing file and challenges with that, the last council meeting, we had the Housing for All strategy, and there seemed to be a bit of urgency around the table of council wanting it to move faster. Do you have any updates on whether or not you think you can do anything faster than what was in the original plan?
In terms of the Housing for All strategy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the big piece of it right now is understanding, where the green spaces are going to be. And so, as council knows, we're actively working on that. And once we're able to identify it, then that's a next step on it. We're not waiting on anything though. So there are a number of things, if you look at the plan, that are all working simultaneously. Somerset Acres, for example, good example. Things are moving forward. The infrastructure will be readied by the province for the site in order to be ready for the mobile units to move in. So there's a number of those actions that are already in the works.
Who do you think is going to oversee those, Mr. McGovern? Do you think it'll be bylaw enforcement or?
Pardon me?
Like, who do you think is going to oversee like the green, red, and yellow zones? Is it bylaw enforcement?
Yeah, well, as part of the plan right now, it is by law enforcement. Is it solely by law enforcement? Are there resources by
Sure.
police that provide support? Those are
Yeah.
discussions that need to continue to be had.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Hickey, back to you.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just a comment on that. We have 2 meetings as part of these Monday night schedules. I can assure the public we are acting with a significant amount of urgency on this, and I would urge the councillor to recognize that we have had conversations outside of this room that recognize that urgency, where those discussions have been fully had and are continuing to be fully had. We just aren't prepared to bring everything to the public right now, as they know.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, on to the next subject. Councillor, City Clerk. Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next is item 12.2 on the agenda. This is a recreation investment policy guideline presentation.
Director McKeel, back to you. You're in the hot seat tonight.
Comprehensive review of the recreation subsidization policy began in November 2023. This review involved a thorough analysis of the current policy, an environmental scan that included research on leading best practices, community demographics, and community and stakeholder engagement. We also conducted an in-depth analysis of existing approaches to develop a final strategy for setting fees at the City of St. John recreational assets. As a result of valuable feedback from Common Council, we have reached this current phase of the review. Since November, staff have collaborated closely with RC Strategies on this project. Megan Carey, a partner with the firm, is here today to provide an overview of the review and recommendations. I'll now hand it over to Megan.
Welcome back, Megan. Oh, there we go.
Thank you. Your Worship, Council, staff, and public, thank you for your time this evening to present our findings and provide an overview and direction to our recommendation for this very important recreation investment policy. As indicated, we've gone through a really lengthy process in which Common Council has been engaged and had an opportunity to review our research that's been conducted, the engagement that we've conducted with your community members, and as well where we've been able to draw in leading practices from across Canada. I do think it's important for us to qualify when we're talking about setting fees. There really are kind of 4 common approaches that we see, and that allows us a basis to think about how we can make a made for St. John approach to setting fees, because it is really important to think about that community context. When we talk about traditional or historic approaches, that really does focus on public good, thinking about we're providing recreation services because we know that they're good for our community. Unfortunately, we know that recreation services are also a very costly municipal service that we provide. And when we're talking about a traditional approach, that doesn't always look at our costs that we are incurring to provide these important services to our residents. Conversely, a cost-based approach, which is very common and is actually closely aligned with your current recreation subsidy policy, does focus on looking at what our cost is to provide service and then setting fees from there. The issue with a cost-based approach, though, is it doesn't take into those important community benefits. So now we're starting to see where we have to think through these different approaches and start to take the best from each in balance. A market approach is very closely aligned with a private sector approach. That was where we're going to look at our competitors, see what a market will bear, and that's where we're going to set our fees for a service. Unfortunately, this is challenging, as we know in the recreation sector. Comparing services between our municipalities does allow for some challenges because we're making some assumptions around the types of approaches or operating policies of our competitors. It also doesn't take into consideration the benefits that our public might accrue from our services, nor does it take into consideration the true cost that a municipality is paying. The last piece is a benefits-based approach. This is something that has been gaining, it's been around for quite a while, but it's certainly something that is becoming more common and being adopted by municipalities throughout Canada. It's where we're focusing on setting our fee for services as aligning it with the benefits that are being accrued by our community. This is importantly based within understanding the true cost to provide a service and aligning our investment with that. So we're making an efficient use of our resources is at the basis of a benefits-based approach. Based on that and within your package this evening, you'll see that our team and along with our work with your staff are making a recommendation that we would adopt a benefits-based approach, and that would be the basis for our recreation investment policy for the City of St. John. This really does focus on connecting our services and thinking about the benefits to our entire community that may be accrued, as well as when we're seeing benefits go to the private individuals as well. It connects closely with your belong value in ensuring that we are investing in a manner that focuses on our social values and improving the quality of life of all residents, while making efficient use of our resources and our tax investment that goes towards supporting our recreation services, as well as the opportunity to draw on important data that supports this and considers our community and what we value. When we talk about our rationale and where we've landed within our policy and why we landed with the benefits-based approach as our philosophical background to this policy, is because it does allow us to be accountable. It starts to allow our staff to communicate to our residents as to why we're making decisions, where we're seeing benefits be identified. It allows us to prioritize local needs. Every community is a little bit different, and so when we talk about situating our investment rates, we need to take into consideration what are the true needs of our community. Is it youth? Some communities we work with as seniors take a strong focus. So really looking at your community complexion and allowing you to place along that continuum where we want to direct our investment. This benefits-based approach also allows us to connect our fee-setting policies to our allocation piece as well. So making sure that we have important alignment between who is using our facilities, how they're using our facilities, and how we're charging them to use our facilities. It also becomes an opportunity and allows us to justify our decisions to taxpayers. It provides that rationale to understand where we're seeing those benefits and allows us to communicate that data that we have on what is the true cost to provide a service and where we're seeing benefits be accrued. When we talk about the process for setting fees, this is going to be a cyclical process. You'll see this within the implementation plan that's included within your package. This process will be cyclical every 3 years. So we'll begin or initiate the process, and in this case, it was the review of your subsidization policy that you put forth. An important point is calculating unit costs, and I'll explain that a bit more on the next slide. From those unit costs, we do allow us to assign investment rates and calculate what we call justified fees. And those are the typical fees that would be based on our unit costing and those investment rates. We do know, however, there's times where we need to adjust those fees and analyze them. That's something that we've been working closely with staff over the past few months to make sure that we're setting fees that are realistic, that we're not creating additional barriers or financial concerns. And while we don't want to totally compare, we know that we have to look at our market as well and making sure that we're aligned because that's certainly the first thing that some of our residents will see when they start to look at other opportunities. And we don't want to disadvantage our important support groups who provide important opportunities for our residents. Unit costing is a significant task, and that's you'll see within the package, we're recommending that staff complete this every 3 years, but it is critically important. It's critically important that we know the true cost to provide a service. So this is where we'll need, and your staff will work, and we have a really good basis of data already, but there's certainly some efficiencies that we've identified within our analysis of the current processes to understand how much it costs to provide a service. And that also looks at utilization as well. So we're going to have, typically, a lot of those expenses are fixed, it's based on that utilization. So the more utilization we get, the unit cost will actually go down. And so within the recommendations and within the report, there are ideas or recommendations around where we can enhance the utilization of our facilities that could potentially bring down the unit costing and translate to lower rental rates in the future. Within your package, you will see the setting of investment rates. So this is based and direction was taken from our work with Common Council, as well as looking at what leading practices are across Canada and where we can see data that justifies our investment into specific opportunities. We are focused on creating 4 user groups, so focusing on youth not-for-profit organizations, adult not-for-profit organizations, a casual renter, which would be defined as someone who is one-off using our facilities, but not doing on a consistent basis, as well as identifying for-profit organizations. Across our activities, we have our regular activities, so that would be a game or practice or typical activity that would take place. And so we're seeing where we have strong investment into our youth not-for-profit organizations. So that's making sure that we're protecting our activities for youth and we're prioritizing them in this process. The second piece is tournaments, and so we know how valuable tournaments are. They certainly do connect back to that important belong value. They provide an opportunity to develop social capital in our communities, to build community, to develop pride in our city, and attract non-local spending as well. So these are really significant opportunities, and that's why we're seeing a higher investment rate at that tournament. We potentially have some fundraising opportunities. Those are set at a lower investment rate. So those typically have, well, they do have public good and there are broader benefits to them. They have very specific directives to them. So there's less of a general public good that can be attached to a fundraising event. You'll see any type of private event, casual renter, or for-profit, that there's no investment going into those. So certainly if we have an organization who is a for-profit, if they're making a profit, they should be paying the true cost of what it is to run a facility. And so that's very important when we're talking about the public benefit and public good. So we're focusing on investing in our residents and our opportunities there, and working with our organizations and providing them with an opportunity to use our facilities. Within your package, you'll see a very detailed implementation plan that outlines the setting of fees. You'll see a directive there for the upcoming year for various fee rates, and as well as directive as to the scale of fees over the next 3 years and direction around current unit costing that will take place in year 2 of this. You'll see within the fees that many of them are in fact lower. So we are increasing our investment into recreation services, and we're providing opportunities, particularly at the youth level, for an opportunity to provide and enhance our opportunities. As well, we'll see that many of the rates are very close. They're very similar once we've gone through this process. There are some rates that will be higher. That is arena, for example, for a non-prime time. Previously, there was a broader schedule, which included early morning, pre-prime, post-prime. So we've condensed that now, which will translate to some administrative simplicities for just one general non-prime rate, and that is slightly higher. There is Field A, so our general level A fields. The rental for those facilities have been identified as a higher rate, and that is based on our unit costing that was conducted. However, we've worked with administration to provide an implementation that would ensure it's not a barrier. So it will be a scaled implementation for those rates, and that will allow to ensure that we have sustainability for our organizations, but we are meeting our responsibilities as a municipality. And generally, creating the for-profit rental rates will allow for us to then increase some revenue there in that opportunity as well. So I do thank you for your time this evening, and I'm certainly happy to take any questions or provide any clarifications. So thank you very much.
Okay, we do have a couple of questions there for you, Megan, or Councillor Harris, at least. Go ahead,
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this. Since we got here, there has been major disputes back and forth about what should be what and what is what, and this definitely gets us a lot closer to sort of that holistic approach. There is one question I have. How do we sift true costs? And I say that specifically because I know of teams or clubs that will do, let's say, maintenance work in a moment or some line painting that needs to be done, a few days before if staff are not able to, or just those things can add up. And, that true cost can become a sunk cost, right? Where now we're just assuming that that's going to continue in perpetuity. And maybe we don't have a well-organized team the next year who can do that. So that's one question. I'll start with that, and then I have another follow-up one off that. So what do we do to sift that true cost?
So through your worship, through the councillor, so excellent question. And there's definitely, particularly when we're looking at fields, there's this challenge where groups do contribute and they do provide services. I would commend your staff. You are certainly ahead of where we see a lot of municipalities in your ability to do unit costing and understanding the true cost to providing a service. But there has to be work with these groups to incorporate their labor that they're contributing and looking where we can create some of those partnerships. We don't know, there's some limitations because of the unionized environment where we have the park system doing that work. So really working, and I know, and that is part of the implementation plan for staff, to work with groups to understand the value of their contribution to maintaining the fields, and how we can capitalize that into the true costs.
Okay, that makes sense. I can understand that probably come from your department there, Brett McGovern, a little bit, formerly with Samir, doing some asset management strategies that seems to have trickled down into our recreation department, which is great. So now that leads me to the second question, the comparative analysis. What do we do? I mean, I guess the answer is kind of clear, but I'm concerned that, for example, I know there was a major investment into what we might see in Moncton around some of their sports complex areas by third parties. We've had some of that as well, but that drives the fixed costs of some of that down pretty significantly. And so what happens when, the true cost of a similar recreational service in a different municipality is quite different? Do we have a recommendation here on what we do in that case? Or do we have a sense of the level of service we're providing and what it costs? I know that some of that still needs to be done, but do we have a sense on how we stack up compared to a Moncton or a Fredericton or a Halifax or a Bathurst or Charlottetown, like that kind of stuff?
Through your worship to the councillor. So very good question. I'd say when we're talking about recreation facilities, and I spent quite a few years researching this as part of my PhD before joining the firm, you're not even comparing apples and oranges, you're comparing apples and cats or puppies. And so it's really challenging. And we know that our residents are going to look and they've gone to an event and they say, well, this is what they have. So there is data that has been provided to staff that does look at levels of investment in recreation and culture services, St. John compared to other municipalities throughout New Brunswick. That would be comparable. So your Dieppe, for example, Moncton, Fredericton. It is really important, and we're trying to bring forward that this piece, and there's going to be a workshop with your sport groups and community to provide some education around this. So we'll be working with your staff to deliver that in the fall. But really providing that education so they understand we're looking at different operating models. When we look to Moncton, for example, there's the university, which has a strong role in the provision of some of their fields and maintenance, as well as the other communities that border Moncton. So really trying to do that education piece. It's never going to be perfect, and we're always still going to look to those comparators, but trying to educate as much as possible and really focusing on St. John so your organizations understand what is the true cost to St. John and to them as a taxpayer.
That's brilliant. Well, I thank you so much for your work and for the direction, laying it out so clearly and cleanly for us so we can see what's happening next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I would second a lot of what Brent said there. The flexibility piece that we need to have working with individual teams or leagues it's critical, especially in this city. We all know somebody who's involved in a league or team. When I read through this and I listened to you do the presentation, I can't even imagine the amount of person hours that has gone in putting this all together. We're so glad to finally have this, and it isn't obviously just cookie cutter for everybody. You know, it's best practices and all of that. It's just an amazing piece of work. Thank you so much, all of you. Kara.
Through your worship, thank you very much.
I'd have to echo that too, Megan. It is an amazing piece of work. It's great. It's great. It's, you know, it gives us that defense for our decision-making, right, going forward, like with all that information. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you, your worship, and great credit goes to your staff. They've put a tremendous amount of time and effort into it, and we're collectively very proud of it.
Excellent. Councillor Ogden, over to you.
Amount of time you put into it. And what Councillor Brent said, I forgot your name, last name for a minute there, Councillor Harris, what he said about the true cost, and that's one thing I think we have to get across to the healthcare people. So there's never any question about we need a new MRI machine or we need to build a new school for education, but athletes usually have better attendance and they're better learners because they've learned that discipline. So you can become better learners, and that's often what happens when our priority neighborhoods lose their recreational facilities. But you can become better learners by being involved with sports and everything. And so when you say about what's the true cost, I think we also have to look at what's the true benefits to recreation. You lower crime rates, you've got better mental health, physical health, you have better attendance. Used to be the academic used to have a stereotype that the sports were jocks who might miss class and everything. We're finding just the opposite of all that. So you're breaking stereotypes. And we don't have to have everybody playing AAA like Top Corner Hockey does. You know, they have to go pick kids up. These kids can't get to recreational facilities. They have to provide the gear for the kids. Fundy Minor Football's got $600,000 worth of gear so that everybody can play. And we do have a much higher child poverty rate than Fredericton, Moncton, and Dieppe. So we have to keep that in mind. But thank you for all the hours. And I just keep promoting the big benefits from recreation. You can really build great communities and great learners. And I noticed you mentioned about Moncton, who has 3 universities and 2 community colleges. And we have a sort of a satellite university and 1 community college. And that post-secondary education can certainly help with education. I mean, the University of Moncton has done wonderful things in the community, and I think we could do that too here. Thank you.
Through your worship, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Redwan?
Megan, there's a lot of great things in here. I like how you can look at the for-profit and see, you know, compare that to nonprofit youth and nonprofit adults and see how much subsidization is going to be there. You know, the only thing is, and I know that you weren't directed to do this and it's supposed to come later, is the big piece that's missing is outside residents using St. John facilities and St. Johners subsidizing the outlying areas. And I know you weren't directed to do that, but I do have I'm having a hard time to understand how we can really get the percentages right, because I kind of think it's like getting a plate priced out for a restaurant with knowing all of these things, how much the rent is, how much your staff costs, but leaving out the cost of the supplier. It's really difficult for me because, I mean, I kind of wish that what was happening is the main municipalities that are hosting most of the recreation would get a top up of tax money from the province. But hey, we're still waiting for heavy industrial tax and fiscal reform and all of the things. So I don't know if that's ever going to come, but I don't want us to have to be checking to see, do you live in Quispam? Do you live in Rossay? That's what I would like to see, but we do need to take that into account because finally it is a St. John resident that's also subsidizing outlying areas that are not paying taxes for this. So my big question is when are we going to do that piece? Because I know that's something that's supposed to come up. And the other question I had is like the turf field price, for example, is really much more expensive than the other field. I was just kind of curious, Megan, if you can kind of tell me, is it because it's more demand, there's more demand for it, or any thoughts on it?
So through your worship to the councillor, so to the second question regarding the turf. So there's more amenities at the turf than your grass fields. So that's why the cost to provide is higher. There's lighting and different amenities. So the cost is higher to provide it.
That's great. So definitely agree to have more turf fields.
All right. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sullivan?
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Radwin. You took one of my points. Certainly, St. John taxpayers giving money to people to play hockey who don't live in St. John is wrong. I have a very oversimplified solution because I also don't think adults should be getting taxpayer money to play hockey. If adults were paying 100%, doesn't matter if you're in St. John or outside of St. John, you're paying for the cost. For-profit folks should be paying a premium because there's overhead, I am sure, that is not calculated in here that they are still receiving from the taxpayers of the city of St. John in order to be able to use that service to make money for themselves. That premium comes back. Kids, I don't care where you live, it takes a community to raise a child. I think the youth portion of this is 100% bang on. The other part's not so much. The other piece is local government is responsible for providing goods and services that benefit everyone. This doesn't benefit everyone. This benefits the subset of athletes who take part in this selection of sports. If you're an athlete, but you're not in these sports, but you're in St. John, you're paying full fare. If you're a curler, if you're a golfer, there are others, you're paying full fare. The adults are paying full fare. Everybody subsidizes youth, which is good. But the adults here are getting 30%. If they're getting 30%, we should be giving the golf course 30% to subsidize those adults from St. John who are going there. And heaven forbid, if you're an actor, a singer, a musician, a painter, a sculptor, if you're into sewing, if you have an active hobby that might not be sports in the city of St. John, you're getting no financial love from the city of St. John. I think what we've got here, again, for youth is really, really good. But I don't think it's as modern as we think it is. It's traditional thinking of cities have provided these services for decades, will continue to provide these services. You know, if we were following going forward, we would be building pickleball courts everywhere, right? So I appreciate what we've got, especially for the youth, because I think hammering that down and predictability for our youth sports and our youth organizations, we need that for them to go forward. I think it falls short on many other levels. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. And that's always something that we can adjust at another date. City Manager, or CAO, I'm going to just send it over to you. I know your staff have been involved in this. Megan's mentioned that.
Yeah, Megan's mentioned it already a couple of times, but did want to extend thanks to Jen Reed, Mark Dion, Caracos, who's here with us tonight, and finance team who helped support this as well.
Sorry, Mayor, I didn't want to cut anybody off, but I didn't really get my question answered. I know that piece of subsidizing the outlying areas is supposed to come up after. Just wondering when we're going to do that. Is that another consultant? What's happening with that?
Well, we've got the recommendations are in here. Are you going to answer that?
I can answer it, Your Worship. So right now, we have a plan to set the rates, collect more data, work to organize our data better so that we have a truer sense of the actual cost. And during that time frame, also undertake a review of that to get a better understanding in advance of a future rate, any rate recommendations.
Sounds good. Okay, so the recommendation in the kit is to adopt the City of St. John Recreation Subsidy Policy Review, Implementation Plan, and the Recreation Investment Policy as attached, and approve and set the City St. John Recreation Facility rates for 2024, 25, 25, 26, 26, 27 as attached. Councillor Stewart. Councillor Ogden on the question. All in favor? Opposed? 2 nays. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Radwan. Motion carried. Okay, next item. City Clerk. Thank you all. Megan, thank you very much for being here tonight. It's a late evening for you too.
Next is a general correspondence. It's 15.1, a letter from Rockwood Park Endowment Fund, and there's a staff recommendation to refer the letter back to the CAO.
Thank you. Councillor Harris seconding. On the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is 16.1, and this was one of the late submissions that I passed out to council prior to the meeting. It would be the correspondence from Cedar Hill Cemetery regarding an expansion.
All right.
Motion that we just referred that to the CAO. Is that?
Perfect.
Do I need to make a motion first to have it added to the agenda, Common Clerk?
It's properly added, so just a regular
Perfect.
motion.
Yeah, okay, I'd move that we refer that to the CAO.
Councillor Lowe seconding it. Thank you. On the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next are the items that came from Committee of the Whole, and we already dealt with the first one, 17.1, which was the field house, and the next one, or the multipurpose rec center. The next one would be 17.2, and this is with respect to the reorganization of St. John Industrial Parks. There's quite a lengthy resolution, but it had been submitted to council in advance. It's 6-part, and it would basically stand up the new entity.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan, okay, second. On the question? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
Next is 17.3, ratification of closing date for city acquisition of 26 to 28 Retail Drive. And in this case, it would be to change the resolution that the city ratify the decision to extend the closing date from August 1st to August 13th.
Okay, I'll wait till the two conflicts have left, and I'll get a motion from Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next item.
And the final item is 17.4, the 2024 update to management and professional personnel terms and conditions. And it's for council to adopt the new terms and conditions document that was submitted in advance of the meeting.
Councillor Hickey and Councillor Harris on the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Over to you, Councillor Lowe. Thank you, Councillor Hickey. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Councillor Killen, for zooming in with us tonight.
Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.